Tartarus, the demon lord, is introduced, destroying everything as a bright light bursts from a mountain, breaking it apart. His sword is covered in blood as he tells Zephyr he is the last human alive, claims victory, and casts a magical spell at him. Zephyr coughs up blood and feels like the world has ended. A year has passed since humans lost the war with the demons. Most were killed, and the few survivors were turned into hosts to create monsters. Zephyr is the last remaining fighter from the resistance and has fought alone until now. When he sees Tartarus, the god of destruction, he thinks of him. Tartarus sees Zephyr suffering and tries to capture him with magic, saying he kept him alive a little longer to talk, and asks if he is truly Zephyr. As he walks toward him, Tartarus says Zephyr has been a serious problem for a long time. He praises Zephyr's strength and says only a fool keeps fighting a lost battle, but giving up too easily is also weak. He says he hates weak enemies and believes Zephyr understands that since he reached the peak of humanity. Tartarus offers him the chance to serve him and promises they'll conquer more than just this world, even the home of the gods. He holds out his hand. Zephyr asks if he's serious and would really let him join. Tartarus says yes. Zephyr thinks the offer sounds okay, but knows his body is broken beyond healing, yet Tartarus still wants him. He thinks it's probably a trap to make him beg. As he pretends to reach out, he remembers someone once said he swore too much and cast a silly spell on him. He says a certain hand sign will cause a powerful explosion from another dimension, and that's his answer. He gives Tartarus the middle finger. A massive blast cuts Tartarus's hand. Tartarus screams in pain and curses Zephyr, asking how he dares insult him, then smashes Zephyr's burned body. Zephyr feels it's the end of his long fight. He couldn't save anyone or get revenge. Then, he suddenly finds himself in a strange place and realizes he has died. When he stands up, he sees his wounds are gone and his armor is brand new. He looks around, sees a large statue, and wonders if it's a god's temple or the afterlife. Mercedes appears and tells him this is not the underworld, but the lowest level of the pantheon, where the gods live. She walks out of a glowing doorway, and Zephyr freezes when he realizes he can't summon his sword. She says not to worry, introduces herself as Mercedes, a messenger of the gods, and confirms he is dead. She explains the top 3 gods, influenced by others, chose to send him back in time. Zephyr asks what that means. She says only his memories will return, not his powers, but she believes he can regain them. He wonders if it's a trick or dream and asks why she's doing this. She admits it sounds crazy and offers proof, but Zephyr says he believes her and asks what she wants. He knows nothing is free and assumes there's a price. He remembers how, when Tartarus attacked, people begged the gods for help, but they turned away, stopped listening, removed power from the priests, and abandoned the world. Zephyr calls the gods selfish and says they would never give anything for free. Mercedes agrees and says he'll get his answer directly from the gods, who simply want something more entertaining to watch. Zephyr asks what she means, and she explains that the gods watching him were disappointed when he died, as it's extremely rare for a human to show such strong will even when facing death. They were impressed by how he fought alone for 5 years against the demons and found his struggle interesting. Some gods were even sad to see him die, and she reminds him that he seemed luckier near the end because the gods secretly helped him, even if it cost them karma. Angry, Zephyr casts a spell at her, accusing the gods of seeing his suffering as a show, as if his fight only mattered because it amused them. She dodges the spell and uses her magic to make him kneel, telling him to respect the gods since they're watching. She tells him he misunderstood and explains that he is the only human who has ever entertained the gods, and they've never cared about normal people. She grabs his face and says that if he wants anything from them for himself or his people, he must prove he's worth it because nothing is free. She also tells him that someone else pushed hard for his revival but for a different reason. Meanwhile, Tartarus is attacking the angels, saying he's tired of waiting and wants to speak with the one in charge right now. One angel tries to calm him, but Tartarus silences him and shouts that he's conquered 10 worlds, so it's impossible that a human could hurt him. He demands that the record of his injury be erased and says he doesn't care about karma. Mercedes shows this to Zephyr using a magic mirror, and he wonders what Tartarus is doing. She explains that Tartarus is the god of destruction who destroyed 10 worlds, including his own, and has never lost or been hurt until now. His perfect record is ruined, and she asks if Zephyr sees how big of a blow this is to his pride. Zephyr realizes that Tartarus wants to fight him again to fix his record. She confirms this and asks Zephyr what he thinks. Zephyr replies that if Tartarus wants to die so badly, he will happily kill him. She says they will now begin the process of sending him back. He'll return to a random time in the past and will be able to get stronger again. The gods who like him will also give him perks that he can unlock. Though Zephyr hates the idea of receiving help from the gods, he sees this as his chance to take revenge on Tartarus and the gods who treated humans like trash. Mercedes says everything is ready and they're waiting for final approval. She wishes him luck and hopes he puts on a good show. Then she sends him back. Later, Zephyr opens his eyes and sees people around him. One says he isn't breathing, another says they're in trouble, and a third tells them to be quiet and tries to wake Zephyr. They splash water on him and he opens his eyes. Someone says he's alive. Zephyr laughs, realizing he knows them and has gone back 10 years, to when he was 20 and a slave in a temple. A bearded man yells at them to get back to work, and Zephyr responds without care. Another man tries to argue, but a third tells him to let it go. Zephyr thinks he has no time to waste. A boy thanks him, and Zephyr wonders who he is, realizing he's forgotten some things. He remembers it will take effort to adjust again. As he walks away, he remembers Mercedes told him to unlock his perks. He turns back, activates them, and is shocked at what he sees, finding it hard to believe what he's been given. A man with yellow hair says the new guy is really impressive. A man wearing a gray cap agrees, saying he's a good worker and wonders if he has experience as a miner. Before they are amazed by how fast Zephyr is digging, someone else also comments on his speed. The yellow-haired man wishes Zephyr was on their team, saying they can't slack off because of him. Zephyr wonders if this is really happening, still finding it hard to believe. The scene flashes back a bit, showing Zephyr trying to unlock his perks and feeling overwhelmed by all the information. He speaks out loud, confused by the many advanced skills and items showing up in the status windows before him. He realizes some of these skills are ones he's never had and is shocked at what he's received. The mining team leader shows up, calls out to Zephyr, and tells him to return to his place, saying he won't go easy on him just because it's his first day. Zephyr recognizes him and mutters that the man is a lazy fool who doesn't listen. The leader raises his whip to strike him, but Zephyr catches it, surprising himself and wondering how he did that with his bare hands. He quickly bows and apologizes, saying he'll return to work. As the leader walks away, Zephyr looks at his hand, amazed that it isn't even scratched. A message appears, saying his first perk is Wall of Iron, which boosts his durability and cancels out damage lower than that level, also making him less tired. Zephyr realizes he doesn't feel exhausted at all and can keep working without rest. He keeps digging, thinking the skill is tricky to use but very helpful if mastered, and that it's a good starting perk. In the present, he reflects that he has 9 perks in total now and believes he'll return to his old strength quickly using his knowledge of the future. Another worker counts his haul and is shocked, praising him. Later, the slaves line up as the rankings are announced. Team F is first, and the boy cheers with excitement. Zephyr is surprised to learn that the boy is on his team. Team B is second, and a yellow-haired boy is shocked they didn't win. Team H is third, and Team E comes in last. The leader says the lowest team's food and supplies will go to the top 3 teams. He tells everyone to pray to the great goddess of light, Arya. The slaves chant for her light. Zephyr questions the word redeem, thinking of Arya, the top goddess and biggest moneylender. A nearby slave says he's tired and just wants sleep. Zephyr reflects that most of them lost homes to monsters or were former adventurers. They became slaves because of medical debts, and as long as they have slave marks, they can't leave or they'll die instantly. Zephyr resolves to repay his debts and buy back his freedom as quickly as possible so that he can move on to the next part of his plan, facing Tartarus. He is determined that Tartarus will not defeat him so easily this time, and he intends to get back at him for everything he did. He recalls memories of his past life and thinks about Altair, vowing to protect her this time. After a while, Priestess Anna Primrose announces that anyone who needs something from the store or would like a consultation should come forward. One person requests a beer and another orders 2 baked potatoes. The shopkeeper states that a glass of beer costs 80 silver. Zephyr reflects that even after all these years, he still cannot get over how expensive everything is in this place. The little boy approaches and asks if Zephyr can buy him a drink. Zephyr inquires whether the boy has any money. The boy responds that he has just received some and cannot afford anything expensive, but he appreciates Zephyr saving him from the others earlier. He adds that thanks to Zephyr, their team came in first place, explaining that since everyone on their team is weak, They usually come in last, and this is almost the first time they have earned any money. Zephyr understands now why the others were picking on the boy. If even one person on a team is sick and unable to work, it lowers the team's output and automatically boosts another team's ranking. Zephyr reacts in disbelief and insists he cannot allow a child to pay for him. The little boy apologizes, saying he did not mean to offend him. Zephyr thinks to himself that the boy must have helped earlier because those guys were a nuisance. He warns the boy not to get close to him, saying he will only hold him back, and then moves forward. The shopkeeper welcomes Zephyr and asks what he would like. Zephyr inquires if recovery water is available. The shopkeeper notes he hasn't seen Zephyr before and asks if he is new and if he has any money. He explains that the water costs 1 gold per glass and 4 gold for a bottle, and suggests waiting it out if Zephyr is not badly injured. Zephyr places a coin on the table, states he has won 5 gold, and declares that he will take out a loan for the rest. He requests the paperwork, noting that loans are available there. The shopkeeper stamps the documents. The little boy expresses concern, asking if Zephyr is out of his mind and if he realizes how dangerous it is to take on more debt. He explains that they already lose 1 gold from their daily 2 gold wage to pay debts, and without income, they fall into deeper debt. Zephyr asks him to be quiet and just drink the recovery water. The boy continues to warn that the interest on extra loans is extremely high. Zephyr responds indifferently and says he will simply repay it. When questioned further, Zephyr reflects on recovery water, which is popular at the temple for slightly regenerating endurance. What most people don't realize is that it significantly boosts mana if consumed in large quantities. He considers that it usually requires drinking over 10 bottles to get even a small boost, so it is not particularly effective. However, with his perk, it becomes as effective as any potion. A system window reveals that perk 2 is the skill Hermes' secret skill, which increases all potion effectiveness by 500%. Zephyr acknowledges that he cannot make much money in the mines, as there are no bonuses for working extra hard. After finishing the water, he begins exercising and wonders what he should do next. After a while, the head of the mining team approaches and asks what is going on, mentioning if Zephyr heard a monster in the depths of the mine. Zephyr stands before him and confirms that he did hear something, suggesting they inform the hunting team and offering to guide them to where the sound originated. Zephyr thinks that dungeons are where the real money is made. Zephyr thinks about how monsters are formed when mana becomes twisted. Most monsters hate humans and have caused many problems, but they are also valuable because of the mana stones inside them, or their bones and hides, which can be used to make useful items. Over time, people began to treat monsters as a resource, and monster dens or dungeons became seen as dangerous treasure spots. Eventually, the hunting team shows up. Zephyr sees them as a group of skilled slaves trained to fight monsters. They get decent pay and bonuses because their job is very dangerous. Zephyr wonders why he, a trained adventurer, was sent to the mines instead of joining the hunting team, and feels there must be a reason. Later, the shopkeeper checks if Zephyr is paying attention and says he can't borrow more money. Zephyr asks if he's hit his daily limit, and the shopkeeper says he already borrowed the full amount for the whole period. Zephyr realizes this is bad and thinks he might need to steal. Then Priestess Anna Primrose walks up and tells him he can get more money if he sells some of his organs, explaining the temple buys fresh organs for research. Zephyr asks to see the documents and she gives them to him, saying he can cancel the operation if he repays the loan before the scheduled date. She says they're not unfair lenders. The shopkeeper is shocked and asks if Zephyr is crazy for considering it. Zephyr says he wants more recovery water. The shopkeeper gives it to him and says it's his life, calling him strange and thinking he'll likely end up in a lab. Zephyr drinks all the bottles and believes he's now met the required conditions. Gote, a member of the hunting team, arrives and asks if Zephyr is the one guiding them to the monster. Zephyr says yes and thinks the timing is perfect. Gote introduces himself as the recon team leader and introduces Dale and Marco. Zephyr says he can't see in the dark but can use mana detection, and he's happy to meet them. He explains that night vision lets you see, but mana detection spreads mana around the user to improve senses, useful for moving through dungeons quietly. Gote is glad he won't have to buy a night vision potion and says they should head out. Marco gives Zephyr gear to carry. Dale says it's cool that a miner uses mana and asks if Zephyr will lead. Gote tells Dale to be quiet. Zephyr thinks he'll just observe them, knowing only one of them survives. At the dungeon gate, a boy ties a string to Zephyr's arm and explains explains the magical bracelet will break and alert the main base if something happens. He wishes them luck. Later, two monsters enter, get distracted, and Gote and Dale ambush and kill them. Zephyr notes the recon team's job is to find monsters and gather dungeon info for the strike team. Gote says these monsters were probably stragglers from the far side of the mine, which was attacked last week. Dale says the survivors must be hiding here. Zephyr notes that recon members are trained hunters too. Gote tells Dale and Marco to handle the rest themselves, saying if they feel confident, they sometimes clear dungeons alone. Dale warns that their job is only scouting and they should avoid danger, asking what they'll do if stronger monsters show up. Gote says with 4 of them, they can beat a monster like Kobold. Dale asks if Gote is serious and says Zephyr shouldn't count since he's just carrying their gear. He doubts the 4 of them can clear the dungeon. Marco steps in to ease the tension and asks Zephyr if he has a plan. Wanting to hear it first, Gote tells Zephyr to show them. Zephyr takes out a bag and confirms it has moonbush leaves and berries. He explains that when mixed with kobold monster waste, the smell copies a female kobold in heat, strong enough to attract monsters from 300 feet away. One monster smells it, realizes their trick, and runs into a trap, dying. Gote sees it and says it worked, and Dale calls him a genius. Gote corrects him, saying he's always a genius. Dale asks how Gote knew about the plant, since he's never heard of it. Gote claims it's from experience, but Zephyr remembers he was the one who told Gote about it in his past life when they served together in the same unit. Back then, Gote wanted recognition but never got the chance. Earlier, before the team meeting, Gote had asked Zephyr if everything was clear. Zephyr replied that he had already scouted the area alone and only saw a few leftover kobolds. Gote asked how many lives he had, and Zephyr said he used to lead recon in his old group and was good at finding things. Gote asked if they could clear the dungeon with the plan, and Zephyr said it was his call, but suggested it would be a waste to share such an easy dungeon. Gote thinks Zephyr is smart and prepared, and appreciates that. He's giving him the credit. He knows he could get Zephyr transferred to the hunting team if he wanted. He gives Zephyr a knife and tells him to use it. Zephyr thanks him. Gote figures Zephyr is trying to impress him but says he's not that easy to impress and clearing one small dungeon isn't enough. Still, he's happy to take the credit. In the present, Gote kills a monster and says it's handled. Marco kills another with a hammer and says it was easier than expected. Gote picks up a stone and says it's a shame kobold mana stones are low quality. Zephyr says the way forward is clear. Gote agrees and says they should move on. Dale suddenly notices something, picks up some bones and wonders if they're just animal remains, but when he looks closer, he realizes they're kobold bones. The bones wrap around him and throw him aside. Marco warns everyone to back up and readies to fight, thinking his mana shield can block even an orc chieftain, but the bone monster shatters it. Marco coughs blood and collapses. Gote is shocked to see the monster's tail. Outside, the boy with glasses sees 3 of the magical bracelets break and realizes something is wrong. Inside, Gote is badly hurt and Zephyr gets ready to fight. A system screen reminds him that his perk, Wall of Iron, boosts durability, cancels weak damage, and stops him from tiring. Still, it can't fully stop the monster's attack, which means it's strong, even though it's probably less than a year old. The monster catches Dale with its tail, and Zephyr recognizes it as a predator that tricks other monsters into raising it, only to eat them later. Zephyr picks up Gote's spear and asks if he can use it. Gote asks him to wait and what he plans to do. Zephyr swings the spear, thinking it's time to properly warm up. He powers up and mentally asks the monster which weapon it wants to be killed with. The system window notifies Zephyr that perk 3 is the silver key, which is the key to a door in a forgotten castle. The key holder can store items in a silver room anytime and anywhere, and they are currently stored in his left hand. Zephyr believes this essentially creates an inventory, and he conjures a cloth and dragonweed from his hand using his powers. Gote is shocked to witness this. The system window explains that dragonweed is a natural tonic that calms the mind. Zephyr tells Gote to stand back and ties the cloth around his hand holding the spear, noting that things are going to get intense. Gote questions what Zephyr is doing and insists that he is not even a soldier. He curses inwardly, knowing he will die eventually, but refuses to die while hiding behind a miner like a coward. As the monster moves to attack, Zephyr also moves with the spear. The system window notifies that the skill Fear paralyzes enemies with terror. Gote reflects that he just remembered something an older soldier once told him when he was starting out. He recalls a few years back when an adult predator attacked a nearby town, and the townspeople were completely paralyzed with fear, unable even to blink, forced to stand helplessly awaiting death. In the present, Gota is shocked by the attack and wonders what the sound is and what is happening. Zephyr strikes the monster with the spear and confirms to himself that the tonic is effective at neutralizing fear. He spits out the dragon weed. The system window reiterates that dragon weed calms the mind, and perk 2, Hermes' secret skill, maximizes potion effectiveness by 500%. Zephyr notes that only one of his 9 perks is a weapon, though he cannot use it at the moment due to its enormous mana cost. Still, he believes this small predator is manageable. He pulls a bottle of poison from his inventory, applies it to the spear, and thinks of his old friend, number 68 among the 72 deadly poisons created by Fade, the king of poisons, Belial. A flashback shows Zephyr sitting with Fade, who asks him if he is sure about this. Zephyr replies he is, and Fade responds that he spent his life creating the formulas and questions what use they are if the world is ending. Fade would rather the poisons be used than wasted. In the present, Zephyr attacks the monster, reflecting that Fade wanted him to use the poisons. If Belial can kill even one more monster and save a life, Fade would be happy. He stabs the monster deeply, and it screams in pain. Zephyr explains to himself that Belial, a deadly poison made from a common plant, enters the bloodstream, corrodes the organs, and causes extreme pain due to Fade's sadism. He calculates that it will take 3 minutes for the poison to fully spread, so he must hold out until then. He stabs the monster repeatedly, but it hits him with its tail, throwing him away as it roars. He throws the poison bottle into its mouth and tells the monster to take it. The monster vomits blood. Zephyr notes there are only 2 minutes left, no, 1 minute. He acknowledges that his current skills aren't good enough to fully evade the monster, so he must either wait or kill it quickly. He stabs the monster again with the spear as it tries to strike him with its tail. He grabs the tail and thinks it's almost over. The monster moves its tail, and Zephyr jumps onto it, then onto its head, stabbing the spear into its eye. He breaks the spear in 2 and stabs the second half into its head, saying this one is for the monster too. He then draws his knife and stabs it in the other eye. The monster thrashes in pain. Zephyr uses the knife to anchor himself and realizes he still has one more strike to go. Standing atop the monster, he reflects that 10 years ago, in this same moment, his current strength was not enough to defeat or outlast it, which is why he prepared. He recalls the recovery water, which boosts endurance and, though requiring 10 bottles for a minimal mana boost, is significantly enhanced by his perk. The system window confirms Hermes' secret skill increases potion potency by 500%. He now has enough mana to pierce a predator's skull and releases a basic mana technique in his final attack. Meanwhile, Gote watches and recalls how, as unit head, one word from him could transfer Zephyr to the hunting team. He assumes Zephyr is trying to impress him, but concludes that Zephyr, though diligent, is not desperate. However, Gote then realizes he was completely wrong. Zephyr does not need to impress anyone, as his ability alone will make him rise to the top. For now though, Zephyr is still a minor and cannot even enter dungeons without permission, which is why he needs Gota's help. Zephyr then tells Gota that they need to talk. A badly wounded yellow-haired man insists he's not one of the enemies and swears it's the truth. A black-haired man holding a star-shaped flail gets ready to strike him. The yellow-haired man begs him to stop, reminding him they joined the temple together and asking him to believe that he doesn't worship the demon god. But Sahak orders the black-haired man to kill him. The man obeys, and after the yellow-haired man dies, a centipede crawls out of his body. Sahak kills the centipede with a magic knife and says it was a marked one. He licks the blade and says he knew the man was a follower of Tartarus. Later, Sahak kneels before Inquisitor Matthias, who asks if it was worth killing 7 people just to catch one traitor, especially with a big raid coming up. Sahak says he understands how these people work and thinks the rest of the unit was already corrupted. With only a month left before the raid, he believes it's better to remove all heretics now to avoid trouble later. Matthias agrees to handle the hunting team's reaction, but warns Sahak not to embarrass embarrass him. Sahak agrees. Meanwhile, in human resources, a short-haired girl gives Captain Gote from Recon Unit D a form and asks if he is officially recommending someone for transfer. She asks for the name and role. Gote says it's Zephyr from the mining team who just started this week. She explains that a transfer makes that person part of his unit, and if Zephyr underperforms, it could hurt Gote's promotion chances. Gote agrees, thinking it's worth it since he'll get the credit if Zephyr does well. Then the story flashes back to the dungeon the previous day, where Gote asks Zephyr if he's really going to act like the fight with the Predator never happened. Zephyr says yes. Gote asks if it's because he wants the monster's body. Zephyr replies that he only wants the Predator and will leave the kobolds, so Gote can report it as a kobold den. Gote knows dungeon loot like corpses and mana stones belongs to the temple, and slaves can't keep anything. Hunters only hope for bonuses, but brokers pay more. Gote says it's impossible because a team is waiting outside and another will inspect the area. Zephyr agrees and shows another method. He places his hand on the monster, says it's gone, and uses a spell to store it in his inventory. Gote is stunned. It's rare to carry such a big creature, and even the blood is gone. Gote asks if Zephyr doesn't care about promotions. In the present, Gote thinks Zephyr can help him clear 3 more dungeons, split the loot, and keep the bodies. He knows dungeon clears and fights are key for promotion, but recon teams rarely get combat points. He's been stuck as unit leader for 3 years, but with Zephyr, everything might change. Gote realizes the recon unit always enters first, so they can claim the dungeons before others interfere. Clearing multiple dungeons with a small team will make him look great as a leader. He wants to be promoted, while Zephyr wants money, making it a mutually beneficial arrangement, as long as they are careful not to get caught. Zephyr knows that if he gets a good price for the Predator, he could easily repay his debt. Although he would like to leave the temple immediately, he still has something he must do there. He is aware that the Temple Knights are planning a major raid in about a month, during which they will uncover an item that will cause a sensation across the land. He is determined to participate in that raid and obtain the item to change the future. Later, Gote announces that the registration is complete, and Zephyr is now officially a member of the hunting team. He hands Zephyr his ID tag and instructs him to visit the armory to receive his basic gear. Zephyr reflects on his past life, recalling that he joined the hunting team too late to be included in the participant list for the raid, which caused him to miss it. Knowing that only 20 people from the hunting team are selected, he understands that only the exceptionally skilled or well-connected are chosen. He begins thinking about when he can execute his plan. Gote mentions that on the first floor of the armory building, Zephyr will find a line of people where he needs to go next. Gote also mentions that he will visit the hospital briefly to ensure Dale and Marco are receiving proper treatment for their wounds. He asks if Zephyr needs to retrieve any belongings. Just then, Sahak arrives with his men. Gote sees them, places a hand on Zephyr's head, and tells him to lower it. As they move forward, Gote explains that those are official agents of the Inquisitor, slaves who serve directly under him. He advises Zephyr to treat them as superiors rather than fellow slaves because they have the authority to label anyone a heretic and punish them without trial. Some people have been taken away for merely bumping into them or failing to greet them properly. Gote singles out Sahak, referring to him as the Mad Hound, who joined the Inquisitor's agents purely to kill people. Once he targets someone, he never lets them go, so everyone fears him. Sahak then points at Zephyr and calls him out. Gote is shocked, questioning whether he heard correctly, then apologizes for a moment and introduces Zephyr as a minor. He introduces himself as Sahak, an Inquisitor's agent, and explains that Zephyr has just been transferred to his team, assuring Sahak that he will handle any issues as the team leader. Sahak cuts him off and tells him to shut up, stating that he did not ask him anything. He senses the murderous aura from Zephyr and confirms his suspicion, believing that while most would not notice it, his own bloodhound instincts can. Despite Zephyr's appearance as a minor, he knows that he was recently transferred to the hunting team, indicating he was initially with the mining unit. Sahak recalls that new slaves undergo aptitude tests, including assessments of physical and mana abilities. Those showing combat potential are given opportunities to join the hunting team, which is always in need of fighters. It strikes strikes Sahak as strange that someone as strong as Zephyr was first placed in the mines and only later nominated for transfer. The Inquisitor's agents surround Zephyr as Sahak prepares to question him. He believes that even with Zephyr's strength, they can subdue him if necessary. He insists on asking a few questions and warns Zephyr not to lie and to answer truthfully. Zephyr privately wonders who Sahak thinks he is and notes how easy he is making the situation for him. Sahak repeats his demand to question him and warns again that Zephyr had better answer him honestly. Sahak inquires whether Zephyr has ever heard of the Tartarus worshippers. Zephyr acknowledges that he knows them well, better than anyone, as they are a group devoted to Tartarus, the god of demons, and are responsible for betraying humanity during the upcoming Great War, ultimately leading to its downfall. At present, most low-ranking individuals see them as merely a cult opposing the Orthodox religion. Sahak explains that they have several distinguishing traits and that his talent for identifying them led to his employment under Inquisitor Matthias. He asserts that his intuition tells him Zephyr is a threat and points a knife at him, announcing that he will begin questioning Zephyr as an official agent of the Inquisitor, reminding him that every word and action can be used against him. Zephyr asks if he can pose a question first. One of the agents accuses him of being arrogant, but Sahak allows it. Zephyr requests to move elsewhere, explaining that too many people are watching and he does not want to humiliate Sahak publicly, which would put him in an awkward situation. Sahak, incredulous, asks what Zephyr just said, remarking that he is certainly full of himself and questioning if he thinks he can defeat all 5 of them alone. Sahak dismisses the concern, deciding it makes it more satisfying to teach arrogant people a lesson, and moves to attack. They activate a magic circle. The system window notifies that the skill red field boosts all allies' stats within the field and that its effect increases with more casters, though currently it only functions as gear due to the caster's limited understanding. Zephyr decides to go with it, thinking this will be interesting. Sahak notices Zephyr's strange stance, suspecting it might be a martial art, and deciding to wait, but ultimately jumps to attack, confident in his invincibility under red field. Zephyr blocks the attack, counters, and targets Sahak's leg, only to find it unyielding as if made of steel. Zephyr punches repeatedly and knocks Sahak out. Gote warns Zephyr to look right as the black-haired boy throws the star flail at him. Zephyr blocks it with his arm and the boy swings it again, declaring it is now his turn. Zephyr remarks that he didn't know the boy could talk and says he should speak more often, having assumed he was just a pet. The boy attacks again, breaking the ground with the flail. Spectators warn each other about flying debris. Gote watches, amazed, noting that Zephyr took out Sahak in seconds with some unfamiliar martial art, and the big guy's flail is tearing the ground apart as if it has a will. He observes that Zephyr is evading completely and wonders if he might actually beat them. He thinks if Zephyr wins, Sahak will be too humiliated to request an arrest, and they won't even get to interrogate him. As Zephyr's unit leader, he knows he will be guilty by association if Zephyr loses, so he silently hopes for victory. A yellow-haired man comments that it's over for Zephyr. Gote asks what he means, and the man explains that although Zephyr is dodging well, time is running out. Zephyr catches the flail chain, sees a magic light, and thinks that as long as the red field is active, he can manage. The black-haired man tries to yank the chain back, and Sahak attacks from behind with a sword. Zephyr notes they grow stronger with time. Sahak tells him to get ready and says he will regret not begging for jail. He strikes, capturing Zephyr's hand with the chain, and attacks repeatedly, boasting that Zephyr cannot even see him. He believes his stats are 80% higher and that Zephyr has no chance, laughing and insulting him. Zephyr slams both his hands on the chain against his opponent's head, smashes his face to the ground, grabs his hair, and criticizes their teamwork before kneeing him in the face. Sahak, shocked, realizes his red field buffs are useless. He thinks Zephyr ignored the larger man, who should have been used as a tank. The black-haired man becomes angry, calls Zephyr a punk, and yanks the chain. Zephyr mocks him, noting his size and asking why he keeps throwing chains if he's afraid of a hand-to-hand fight. He thinks if his old subordinates had acted like this, he would have disciplined them. He uses power boost, grabs the chain, yanks the flail, and sends his opponent crashing to the ground. Everyone is shocked. Sahak tries to rise, curses Zephyr, and demands to know who he is. Zephyr replies that he thought Sahak was an interrogator and asks if that is all he has to ask. He adds that unfortunately, Sahak has no right to know and walks away. Ned watches from a window, amazed, wondering if Zephyr might have been sent by their master. A person asks what just happened, and another says he cannot believe it. Sahak lost. Sahak tries to get up and threatens to kill Zephyr. Zephyr thinks he is a sore loser and reflects that the first part of his plan is now complete, with the only remaining question being when word of it will spread, something he believes is inevitable. Suddenly, he collapses to the ground, unable to move a single muscle. He feels completely drained, with his entire body aching, and realizes it must be mana freeze. The system window explains that mana freeze is a temporary state of exhaustion and pain experienced when a mana user depletes their mana. Zephyr acknowledges that the skill consumed his mana faster than expected, and despite his enhanced mana reserves, his body from 10 years ago is still relatively weak. He knows that if he does not act soon, the collection will begin. At that moment, Spirit Shylock appears before him and announces that he is a representative of Lord Usra, the great god of debt, and that Zephyr's mana has reached 0, triggering the collection for the Wall of Iron skill. Zephyr recalls that Wall of Iron is more than just a defensive skill. It stores accumulated fatigue and damage as debt, which is repaid in full when mana runs out. Many adventurers have died or gone bankrupt using it, as it is a double-edged sword tied to Usra, a deity who thrives on the despair of those on the brink of destruction. Zephyr curses Usra internally, thinking he must have been drooling during the fight. Shylock initiates the countdown after completing the total damage measurement. Zephyr feels the weight of his body and desperately tries to act. He tears his glove, revealing a small bottle of emergency recovery water. Shylock announces the countdown with 1. Zephyr quickly drinks the water. Shylock throws a large bell at him but stops, noting that Zephyr now has 1 mana point and cancels the collection, stating that the debt will be collected later, and vanishes. Zephyr laughs and taunts Usra, claiming he underestimated him, thinking he would not have prepared for this moment. Zephyr sees himself as a survival expert, having stayed alive even after humanity was wiped out. Avoiding a little collection is nothing. As long as he manages his mana properly, Wall of Iron remains safe and effective. He remembers that in his past life, the skill was worth 500 gold and popular among berserkers, though far beyond his current means. He raises his middle finger toward the sky and sarcastically thanks Usra, enraging the god. Later, Zephyr wakes up in a strange room, unsure where he is or if he passed out. Priestess Anna Primrose greets him and asks if he slept well. Zephyr finds himself tied to a bed surrounded by weapons and questions what she is doing. She apologizes, explains that he is in their workshop and reassures him, saying he was sleeping deeply from exhaustion. She informs him that the repayment period for his first shop loan expired an hour ago and accuses him of being reckless. She grabs a knife and expresses concern over the dangerous behavior he has exhibited, including taking loans with collateral and missing interest payments. She warns that it appears he has no intention of repaying them. She brings the knife near his eye and demands to know whether he will pay back the loans. Zephyr suddenly remembers his debt to them and realizes that using mana now will trigger another collection from Usra. Knowing he must talk his way out of it, he explains that he will receive his dungeon reward next week and pleads for more time. She replies that they will be taking that as well and questions how he plans to pay the accumulating interest on his daily shop loans. She dismisses the dungeon as a mere kobold den and presses him for a solution. She then suggests cutting out one of his organs and summons her subordinates, who respond affirmatively. They untie his ropes, place his hand on the table, and prepare to sever a finger. She believes losing a finger will teach him to respect the temple. Zephyr tells them to wait, hoping to remember something useful. As she orders them to proceed, one subordinate swings the knife but stops short of cutting him. She suddenly halts the action, thinking Zephyr must have just said something significant, and demands to know who he really is. Anna's subordinate asks what's wrong, but she instructs both of them to leave. When they question what's going on, she firmly repeats the command. One of them acknowledges it, noting to the other that she seems angry and suggesting they should leave. Once alone, she demands that Zephyr tell her the truth and asks how he knows that name. Zephyr responds by saying it would be impossible not to know someone as famous as her sister, or rather, the monster broker known as White Rose. He reflects that Anna Primrose, a nun of the Temple of Light, also lives a secret life as White Rose, a broker dealing in monster corpses, stolen goods, and high-value gear, with ties to the criminal underworld. He believes it would be foolish to raid a dungeon using the low-quality equipment provided by the hunting team, so he plans to strike a deal with her to obtain better gear. He explains that he was actually on his way to meet her and thanks her for picking him up, asking if she could untie him first, as discussing business while tied down feels inappropriate. He proposes they work out a more productive arrangement. Meanwhile, Sahak wakes up in his room, throws food across the space in frustration, and a nurse urges him to calm down, reminding him he needs rest. He remembers Zephyr's dismissive words and curses him, declaring he will kill him no matter what. Ned enters and questions the noise, asking who is making such a disturbance. Sahak greets him politely. Ned tells the healers to leave and says he will handle it. Once alone, Ned mentions hearing about Sahak's mishap and calls it a little accident. Sahak apologizes and admits he messed up but insists there is no need to worry. As he puts a knife in his mouth, Ned challenges the notion, pointing out that people have been talking about the incident all night. He tells Sahak that Inquisitor Matthias warned them not to embarrass him, yet Sahak ended up humiliated in front of all those slaves. Ned notes that Sahak was once seen as special when he discovered that first Tartarus worshipper, but now, after 6 months, he has only found 2 in total. His superiors are starting to doubt him, tired of tolerating his behavior, and now he has tarnished the image of the Inquisitor's agents. Sahak kneels and pleads for one more chance, promising he will do anything. He declares that his first priority is to kill the one who humiliated him, and then he will decide what to do next. He believes that if he fails in that, he is no longer worthy of the Red Agent uniform. Ned tosses a packet in front of him and tells him to use it. Sahak identifies the contents as magical items used by Tartarus worshippers. Ned says it was found in the room of the first worshipper Sahak had caught and leaves the choice to him, suggesting he has nothing to lose either way and should make his decision without regrets. He exits the room. Ned reflects on Sahak's reputation as the Mad Hound, the terror of the hunting team, responsible for killing 26 slaves over the past 6 months. He knows that returning to the status of an ordinary slave would mean certain death at the hands of the others. Sahak clutches the magical orb, thinking he has worked too hard to escape the misery of slavery to let it all end like this. Zephyr will die, not him. Outside, Ned instructs a guard to keep an eye on Sahak and make sure he doesn't do anything reckless. The guard agrees. Ned muses that people must know their place or risk being discarded like him. He reveals that Sahak was only used as a distraction, and thanks to the chaos, the head of the Temple Knights has let down his guard. Ned plans to infiltrate the raid and intercept a crucial item in the dungeon, eliminate the head of the Temple Knights, and help the Tartarus worshippers take control of the Temple of Light's 3rd parish. He believes this mission will change their fate and must not be compromised. He agrees to investigate Zephyr, noting that he was using martial arts techniques known only to their master and his disciples. He questions why, if Zephyr was sent by their master, he approached in such an unorthodox way. Zephyr's behavior strikes him as suspicious, and he decides to use Sahak to test him. If Zephyr proves disloyal, they will eliminate him. Meanwhile, Anna Primrose examines the monster corpse and is stunned, having assumed Zephyr was just a lunatic, but is now impressed. Zephyr asks if she likes it, and she responds enthusiastically that she loves it. She confirms the transaction details. The system window lists the items for sale: 1 predator corpse with 9 mana stones, a brain, and some damaged bones. The requested items include 5 advanced divine enchantments, 1 miraculous rosary, 1 salamander stone, a silver alchemy set, a blessed sun herb, blessed moon herb, and an antler. She says she can acquire all of it, but the cost totals 5,000 gold, so he will need to bring her 3 more predators. Zephyr agrees easily, promising to deliver them within 3 weeks. He asks her to have the items ready and says he needs one more favor. Zephyr sits with Gote and the others as Gote remarks that now that they all know each other, they should reintroduce themselves for the new member. He introduces Marco as the unit's tanker, and Marco responds by saying it's nice to meet Zephyr. Gote then introduces Dale, noting that although he's only been with them for 3 months, he's an excellent sword fighter. Lastly, he introduces their promising new member, Zephyr, and encourages everyone to drink and raise their glasses. Zephyr wonders why everyone seems so tense, thinking they should relax since he's there to help, even if he doesn't look too pleased. He notes that while the food may not be impressive for a welcome party, it's the best they can afford since they're all in debt. Zephyr says he'd like to say something, secretly pulls out a bottle and states that he doesn't drink horse piss. The others are thrilled and ask where he got the bottle. Zephyr recalls receiving the luxury drink from White Rose, a rare treat that most slaves couldn't dream of affording. He suggests a toast to working together. Gote comments that he knows Zephyr is a good guy, and they all fill their glasses. Zephyr reflects that he can make the team look good and boost their success rate, while they can help him smuggle monster corpses. Like it or not, they're in it together until the upcoming raid. He recalls being in the same unit as Gote in his previous life, so he knows how to guide him, though the other two weren't alive at this point in the past, so he's unsure whether they'll cooperate or need to be removed. He observes that people tend to support those who give them what they want: money, recognition, or power, and for those who crave importance, he just needs to build them up. However, there's always one person who refuses to cooperate, and Zephyr has no intention of playing nice with someone who dislikes him. Dale glances at him and internally acknowledges that he doesn't like Zephyr. A flashback shows Gote sitting with Dale and Marco, emphasizing the importance of their current assignment. He explains that he's level 4 while they are level 5, and even one promotion can drastically change how people treat them. He urges them to cooperate and be civil. Marco expresses disbelief that the miner saved them and that Gote made a deal with him. Dale admits it's Gote's decision as the leader, but feels he should have consulted them first. Gote wonders if the miner fabricated the whole story to deceive him while he was unconscious, but then dismisses it, arguing that it's ridiculous to think a miner could defeat a predator alone, and questions who else could have done it. He warns that if anyone finds out about the deal they made, they could face imprisonment or execution for trafficking monster corpses. Marco urges him to lower his voice and reminds them that they already agreed to split the rewards 3 ways, suggesting they observe how things unfold. In the present, Dale briefly considers waiting and seeing, but quickly rejects the idea, thinking Gote is clueless and Marco only likes Zephyr because he brought fancy alcohol. Dale firmly believes that Zephyr spells trouble and refuses to accept him. He reflects that if Marco had scammed them, it would become evident soon enough, as talking big isn't enough to survive in their line of work. They are the hunting team, and raiding dungeons is what they do for a living. After a while, they all head toward the cave. Zephyr thinks about Edorin, a cave town carved into the mountainside centuries ago. Marco comments that he didn't know such a place existed, just 2 days' ride from the temple. Dale asks whether people actually live in those caves, finding the concept interesting. Gote explains that the interior is even more fascinating, with full living quarters including bedrooms, kitchens, and guest rooms. He adds that temple personnel on missions or travelers visiting the temple for healing often stay at the inns there, and recalls lodging in Edorin when he first started out. Marco jokes that Gote should have brought them there back then, not now when it's already infested with monsters. As they enter the cave, they notice webs all around. Zephyr activates mana perception, a skill that surrounds the user's body with mana or spreads it along the ground, enhancing perception by allowing the detection of object contours, movement, and especially mana-infused items, as vividly as if they were being touched. He proceeds with the others and spots a black steel spider. They sit down on the ground. Dale asks if the spider is in there, and Zephyr confirms it, saying he found traces of it near the entrance. He explains the plan. They will avoid the spider webs, head toward the hole where the baby spiders are, pour a paralyzing drug into it, wait for a minute, and then kill all of them. He sketches the plan on the ground and adds that he'll have to keep mana perception running throughout, which won't be easy. However, since the spiders sleep during the day, they can approach cautiously. Dale suggests they wait a minute, saying it's not a matter of ease but possibility. He warns that if they really are facing a black steel spider, the 4 of them won't be able to defeat it alone. He explains that black steel spiders have a steel-hard outer skin, making them impervious to swords, and they strike with powerful attacks. Most importantly, they reproduce rapidly, enabling them to form armies quickly. He compares this to defeating an adult predator, stating that raiding a black steel spider nest is much harder, and insists they are not strong enough to handle it now. He proposes reporting the dungeon to the temple or taking combat team members with them. Zephyr agrees that it's a good idea, but tells Dale that if he doesn't think he can handle it, he can wait outside. Zephyr is confident he can clear the dungeon alone. Dale is taken aback and feels his suspicions are confirmed. Believing Zephyr must be a con man. He recalls that he never saw Zephyr defeat the Predator or fight Agent Sahak himself, and now Zephyr claims he can beat an entire black steel spider nest alone. It doesn't add up, and he doubts that someone so powerful would be in their unit. He concludes the dungeon can't be that dangerous and believes Zephyr exaggerated the threat to scare them off. He decides to observe and see how long Zephyr can maintain the bluff. Suddenly, Dale's hand is struck by webbing, and he realizes it won't come off. He sees a swarm of spiders advancing toward him and is shocked when one jumps to attack. Zephyr sees the situation unfold and decides it's time to begin. He grabs Dale to save him and moves in to strike the spider, but another spider jumps on his arm and begins biting. Zephyr asks what's wrong, surprised that the spiders can't sink their teeth in, and punches them with mana power, killing them. Dale is shocked to witness this and tells everyone to gather around. They all huddle together while the spiders surround them and move to attack. He reflects that this is only a plan, of course. There's no telling what might actually happen in the dungeon, so if they end up in a situation where they have to fight, they'll follow through with it. He recalls giving a cloak to Marco and instructing him to cover his hammer with it. He tells Dale and Gote to cover their weapons with their own cloaks, explaining that most swords can't cut through the spider webs, and they should use their cloak-covered weapons to break through them. Marco breaks a spider web with his hammer and thinks that it's working. Even if the web sticks to the hammer, these things are not very strong, so he can keep swinging. Gote kills spiders and reflects on how many there are. Dozens, hundreds, too many to count. Dale attacks and shouts at the spiders to buzz off, calling them little creeps. A spider attacks Dale's arm and cuts it, prompting him to urge the others to hurry up. Zephyr recalls saying that once they have gathered all the monsters around them, he will deal with them, and he begins attacking. After a while, they manage to kill all the spiders. Gote asks if they got them all. Dale sits holding his arm, thinking the cut is deep and that he shouldn't have underestimated them, feeling embarrassed that he's relying on this guy for help. Zephyr hands him a recovery water bottle and tells him to drink up, explaining that it's a mixture of recovery water and medicinal herbs, similar to a potion. He realizes that Zephyr was aware of the entire situation while they were fighting. The range and precision of his mana perception are on a completely different level. That probably means Zephyr also knows he was the first one to get caught in the spider webs, and he wonders whether anything will be said about it. Zephyr remarks that mistakes are made by everyone, and the key is to avoid repeating them. He considers that Dale isn't actually that bad. In his previous life, he had trained many unskilled fighters, most of whom were hopeless even with precise instructions, but Dale had been completely focused during the explanation. He believes Dale has potential and belongs to the type who must experience things firsthand, since words alone are insufficient. He suspects Dale might still be suspicious of him, but by the time they defeat this dungeon, Dale will likely have decided whether to remain outside dungeons as a coward or to cease being stubborn and follow his lead. Zephyr attacks a large spider. Gote joins in and mentions that it worked. The paralyzing drug has slowed them down. Dale stabs a spider and recalls Zephyr's advice, thinking that unlike their backs, their bellies are soft, so he should aim there. He reflects on how Zephyr has been correct about everything, from the monster's habits and characteristics to their weaknesses, and even knew the most effective way to defeat them, prompting Dale to wonder how Zephyr acquired such knowledge. Dale questions the identity of this knowledgeable individual as he proceeds to cut the spider's belly with his sword. Gote acknowledges the instruction. Marco expresses his approval, saying that Zephyr is nice. Dale remarks that it's a piece of cake. Zephyr commends them, saying it's not bad for a start, and then settles amidst the corpses of spiders. Dale is taken aback as he realizes how much they struggle to defeat just one large spider. Gote contemplates how many spiders he has dispatched. Zephyr suggests they take a minute's rest and asks Gote to retrieve the food, to which Gote agrees. While eating, Marco asks Zephyr what line of work he was in before. Zephyr replies that he was an adventurer. Marco then asks whether Zephyr was part of a big guild or studied with a famous master. Dale also expresses curiosity about Zephyr's background. Reflecting on his past life, Zephyr shifts the conversation and notes that there's only the boss room left now. Marco responds enthusiastically, saying that's great. Gote follows up by asking what they should do next. Zephyr then cuts the leg of a spider, splits it, and fashions a weapon from it while stating that they have fulfilled their roles and that now he needs everyone to leave, leaving them shocked. Gote reflects on the past 4 years he has spent on the hunting team. Many team members have died during this time, but fortunately, he survived. There is one reason for his survival. He always avoided taking dangerous routes, opting for the safest options whenever possible and obeying those in power. He remembers Dale commenting that it would be a waste to share an easy dungeon like this with others, while Marco had remarked that he didn't expect it to be so straightforward. Recalling a moment when he found a stone, Gote mentioned that it was a pity the mana stones weren't better, since they were just kobolds. He thinks this is the reason he never got promoted, but he doesn't mind. He believes it's not worth risking his life for. When Zephyr states that he has completed his part and now requires everyone to leave, Gote thinks to himself that Zephyr was planning to defeat the boss alone all along. He guesses they wouldn't be of much help anyway, so they should just stay out of Zephyr's way, and he agrees with a resigned acceptance. Marco then suggests that since they are already there, they might as well stay with Zephyr for the last part too. They can't just leave now. Gote wonders what Marco is thinking. Dale agrees, stating they have a better chance if they work together. Gote thinks Dale should snap out of it. There are just 2 of them, and he'll end up getting himself killed if he doesn't learn his place. Gote looks at Zephyr and considers saying something, not wanting them to come along if he can help it. Zephyr clarifies that there has been a misunderstanding. He told them to leave, not to slack off, and then announces that he will assign each of them a role. Gote now feels uncertain about the situation and silently disagrees. Later, Zephyr moves deeper into the cave, looks down, and realizes that this is the heart of the dungeon, the queen spider's spawning lair. He sees a large spider and recognizes it as a night spider, which guards the lair, while the queen spider is the ruler of the nest. He knows he can't sneak in any farther. The night spiders rarely leave their posts, only passively stopping anything that tries to enter, so the queen can focus on laying eggs. Zephyr uses his magical inventory to retrieve a silver key and a bag of plain flour. He throws the flour toward the queen spider, picks up his crossbow, and fires an arrow. When it hits, there is an explosion. He thinks that one little spark in that mist of flour is enough to cause a chain reaction of explosions among the flour particles, known as a dust explosion. He runs away, knowing that the blast isn't enough to kill them. The queen spider begins to chase him. He shoots another arrow and notes that it's a poison arrow. The system window informs him that the poison, Belial, number 68 of the 72 deadly poisons of Fade, the king of poisons, causes severe pain. Still, the spiders continue to follow him. In a flashback, Zephyr holds a web sack and explains that it's from a black steel spider, which can be squeezed to produce spider webs. Gote had asked if spider webs would work on spiders, and Zephyr confirmed that they would. Even spiders get stuck to webs without the special fluid secreted by their legs. Zephyr instructed Gote to place webs in certain spots on their way out and gave him the sack, telling him to wait outside. He explained that the boss room is packed with webs and fighting in there would be impossible, so they had to lure the boss out. Back in the present, Zephyr slides down between the webs while a spider gets caught. He uses the spider leg weapon and thinks there is only one night spider left. He stabs it, begins to run, and knows the queen is coming. As he runs toward the exit, Gote outside urges him to hurry. The queen spider spits poison at him, and Zephyr knows this poison is highly acidic, but what makes it truly dangerous is its special effect. He remembers Fade explaining that the curse disables all defense and healing. Humans with low mana and defense melt instantly before they even realize they've been hit. The only way to survive is not to touch it. Zephyr jumps out of the cave to escape. The queen spider leaps after him. He calls for everyone to get into position. They ready their attacks, and Zephyr also jumps, weapon in hand, preparing to strike. The queen spider tries to hit him, but he dodges and challenges her to attack. He decides to act as the tank, since he's the only one capable of facing the boss directly. He remembers telling the others earlier to deal as much damage as possible while he distracts her, and they had responded with surprise. Gote trembles, gripping his weapon, thinking that he has always stayed away from danger because he prioritizes his own safety. Now he wonders how they could possibly defeat a monster like that. Dale recalls a memory where a group from the hunting team teased them. One person told them to make food and clean their gear, while another pointed to their weapon and questioned their abilities, asking if they thought they were hunters like them. That person dismissed the idea, stating that since they didn't even fight, they had to earn their keep somehow. Dale thinks to himself that he is so sick of being treated as useless. He has made it this far, and there is nothing to be afraid of. They can fight the Spider Queen, and he readies himself to attack. Marco Marco reflects that before, they would have never dreamed of fighting such a monster, but something has changed since Zephyr appeared. He thinks that everything Zephyr has said has come true so far, so Marco decides to trust him one more time and encourages the others, saying they can do this. Gote, frustrated that they never listen to him even though he is their own unit leader, thinks that if Dale and Marco insist on fighting, then he has no choice but to join them. He aims for the part of the Spider Queen's armor that was blown away by the explosion and explains that it's soft underneath, only the armor is tough. Marco hears this and responds with interest, stabbing that part with a knife. Dale remembers Zephyr pointing to a place and instructing them to aim there, explaining that it's a cluster of nerves that pass right through the middle of the leg. Following this, Dale coats his sword in tranquilizer and cuts right there, stabbing her, while noting with satisfaction that it went in. Just then, the Queen throws webs around him, and he realizes there's no time to dodge it. Zephyr takes a long jump and attacks her, addressing her directly with an insult, calling her an ugly bug, and proceeds to attack her again and again. Dale watches this and thinks he can't believe how strong Zephyr is. He's blocking all of the Queen Spider's attacks, and Dale can barely follow what's going on. He recalls a memory while Gote expresses concern and asks Zephyr if he's sure he wants them to attack it, suggesting that maybe he should just do it himself. Zephyr reassures him that it will be fine, explaining that the Queen Spider will be furious at him for burning her eggs and will barely even notice what's going on behind her. Besides, Queen Black Steel spiders have an unusual trait. He reflects that he is right, as they have already been fighting for 5 minutes and the Queen Spider has hardly moved from the spot where she first landed. He explains that queen spiders lay their eggs in a narrow spawning lair, so they have a habit of minimizing the use of their hind legs, which makes it relatively safe to be around their hind legs, aside from spider webs or stomp attacks. When they jump down on someone, they mostly attack with their front half. As the Spider Queen attempts to attack Zephyr, he moves back and thinks that he has learned these behavior patterns from fighting giant spiders in dungeons. He believes that since he is holding her back for them, once they paralyze her with the tranquilizer, the rest is only a matter of time. Marco prepares to attack with a hammer and believes in himself, thinking he can do this. Gote also stabs her with a spear and feels confident that he can do it. The Queen then lifts Gote up while he holds on to his spear, and Zephyr observes as the Spider Queen throws Gote away. She furiously declares that she will never forgive them for this, calling them pathetic little humans, and threatens not only to crush them, but also to melt them into a puddle with her poison. Zephyr then uses his mana magic power and attacks her bare-handed, grabbing her venom gland and recognizing it as such. He removes it from her body, unties his belt, and ties the venom gland with it, thinking that now she won't be able to shoot poison for a few minutes and that there is no need to hurry. He takes a high jump, lands on her head, and tells himself to just take his time and aim carefully, believing firmly that this fight will be won by the side that keeps its focus. Soon, the Spider Queen is killed. Gote claims the victory and claps hands with Marco, who agrees that they defeated it. Dale, barely standing, thinks they only won because Zephyr allowed it, and realizes just how much a leader can affect the outcome of a hunt. He wonders if following Zephyr might help him become like him someday. Zephyr knows they can't hide the signs of the Spider Queen's death, so he won't be able to take the whole body like he did with the Predator, but at least he has a few giant spiders to give to White Rose and take what he needs for now. Dale calls out to Zephyr, praises him, and tells him to relax while they finish the job. He offers Zephyr water and says he's good at cutting up monster bodies. Dale tells the others to help out and not leave Zephyr waiting. Zephyr drinks the water and notes that since everyone helped, he didn't need to use much mana, so he won't have to worry about Usra coming after him for a while. He admits the three of them aren't bad at all, but they won't be helpful when it comes to fighting his real enemy. He knows his current stats, equipment, and teammates aren't enough and that he needs a proper plan. Later, Anna Primrose comments on the Predator, surprised at how rare it is. Zephyr hands her a bag with the agreed amount and a little extra, asking her to use it well. She thanks him and says the goddess would approve of his faith. She asks if he needs more inventory space and offers to lend him some before leaving. Zephyr thinks about how strange it is to be doing deals like this in broad daylight inside a temple and reflects that no one truly believes temples are holy anymore. There's too much money donated by believers, and entire cities grow around temples because their knights and slaves kill monsters to protect people. He concludes that safety comes at a price, and even selling one's soul may not be enough to protect your children. Later, Anna walks beside Zephyr and says they were lucky a buyer showed up just in time to purchase both the predator and the black steel spiders. And since the monsters were in good condition, they got a fair price. She praises him for bringing back rare monsters so quickly and calls him impressive. Zephyr asks how much debt he's paid off. She says the question feels cold, but tells him he has paid off 48% so far and that she'll deduct 20% for repayment to the temple. She hands him a uniform and entry pass, telling him he's been assigned to clean the lab. A system window shows that items like a silver alchemy set are now available. She explains that the gear is too large to lend, but since everyone leaves the lab by 7 o'clock, he can use it after that. She reminds him to clean up afterward. Zephyr thinks this is much safer than trying to steal equipment, and since no one actually cleans the lab, tonight could work. He decides it's a good plan. Anna adds that he'll get paid too, so it's not a bad deal. Then Ned shows up, calls her sister, and says he's been looking for her. He asks if she has time to talk, eyeing Zephyr. Zephyr is surprised to see him, knowing that Ned is an agent of the Inquisitor, one of only 12 first-class agents, and they have history. Anna sarcastically asks if he's here to ask her out or borrow money and says she's busy. She thinks he's pretending to talk to her, but is actually here for her client, Sahak's boss, the one Zephyr beat up. She expected them to make a move but finds it bold that they're doing it in front of her, a temple priest. She tells Ned they can talk later and jokes about offering him a loan. Ned smiles and asks if he can ask just one question and buy her tea, saying his friend should join too. He asks if she and Sahak know each other. Zephyr asks about Sahak, saying he's never heard of him and that he has a poor memory, so he can't remember every shady person he's met. He and Ned glare at each other, releasing powerful mana. She senses the mana is so strong it almost cuts the skin, and realizes Zephyr isn't a normal combat slave. He might be as strong as, or stronger than, a temple knight. Ned also thinks that now he understands why Sahak couldn't ignore Zephyr. Though he didn't come to fight, Ned decides to test Zephyr's strength a little. She orders them both to kneel. A system message shows that the slave mark, created by the priests of light, lets them give forced commands. As their marks glow, both are forced to kneel. She slaps Zephyr, grabs his shirt, and warns him not to act recklessly if he wants to stay alive, saying she needs to teach him a lesson. Then she turns to Ned and warns him not to touch Zephyr, calling him her toy and saying she'll kill him if he does. Later, she sits on the stairs and asks Zephyr why he can't just ignore people like that. She admits Ned is very dangerous. Her hands are still shaking. Though he's strong enough to be a first-class agent, no one's seen him fight because everyone who has fought him is dead. She says Zephyr's behavior makes her nervous, and if he dies before repaying his debt, she'll kill him herself. Holding his face, she urges him to be more careful, especially outside the temple where she can't protect him. Zephyr moves her hand and says they were just saying hello and that if Ned really wanted a fight, she wouldn't have had time to stop it. He believes Ned showing up like this means something big is coming and he needs to prepare fast. As he starts to leave, she asks where he's going. He says he's heading to the lab and asks for another favor. She asks what it is. Meanwhile, Ned thinks the power of the slave mark is even more disgusting than he imagined. A flashback shows him asking his master if he really has to become a slave in the Temple of Light, mentioning how much he hates the mark and the people there. The master says 2 Tartarus worshippers posing as priests were caught and killed, and the rest are now under watch, so they need a new plan. The master explains that the priests don't monitor marked slaves, believing they're under control. That flaw will be used against them. He orders Ned to join the temple as a slave and steal the raid dungeon reward, saying only Ned can succeed. In the present, Ned thinks the priests have no idea what's coming. Tartarus followers have figured out how to cancel the mark. They can't use it yet, but they will. And when they do, the priests will pay. Somewhere else, people are repairing fences. A man calls for a meal break, and another wonders why the fences keep breaking. Since they can't afford the temple's protection, they try to secure things themselves. Suddenly, someone says a temple member has arrived. Sahak appears and asks how many people live there. The man says about 50. Sahak nods and plays his magical instrument, summoning monstrous spirits that begin killing everyone. Sahak celebrates his power, vowing to get revenge and make his enemy suffer far worse, laughing. The system window provides information about the Temple of Light's laboratory, a facility where various potions and gear are studied and created. It displays ingredients such as green herb sprigs, moldy bark from the Leda tree, rotten fluids from kobold corpses, corpse mushrooms, and gray centipedes. Zephyr thinks that once these are mixed and boiled together with Queen Spider's poison, the mixture will become Zagan, which is number 61 among the 72 deadly poisons created by Fade, the king of poisons. Later, Zephyr sits in a room sharpening his knife, while Anna Primrose sits on a bed holding a piece of paper and recalling a memory. Zephyr tells her that if Ned's underlings interrupt, everything will be ruined and he needs her help. She initially refuses to lend him her room, but he reminds her that she promised to protect him as long as he remained within the temple, and if he fails, she loses money as well. Realizing he has a point, she agrees to let him use her room. She looks at a human sketch on the paper and wonders what it is. Zephyr uses his mana to smash a piece of arcan wood, which is as hard as metal, into many thin, sharp slivers. She is amazed and asks why he cut the wood into such thin pieces. He explains that these are Eastern medicine needles and plans to dip them in diluted Belial and Zagan, 1 part in 100 for 10 minutes. He reflects that poisons are simple. They exist to kill people easily, or so people believed. No one expected that poisons would one day be relied upon, a change that occurred after the demon invasion and the god's abandonment. He picks up the poisoned needles and begins piercing them into his body one by one. He feels intense pain and begins coughing. As she tries to move toward him, he signals for her to stop. She remembers him telling her that whatever happens, don't panic. Furthermore, she remembers how he told her to do this for him when he gives her the signal. When she asks what he is doing, he replies that he is upgrading himself. He believes the 72 deadly poisons, when concentrated differently, can become entirely new substances, and with the right balance, can even transform into potions that increase his stats beyond their limits. He recognizes the risk, as Belial is extremely painful and Zagan is highly unstable, but he lacks both the materials and the stats to create something more stable. He begins meditating and focuses on mana flow. The system window explains that mana flow is an Eastern energy control technique that circulates mana through the blood vessels, allowing control over internal healing and potential for raising mana limits through training. Zephyr plans to use mana flow to push the poison through his body and suppress its effects. If successful, his stats will increase. If it fails, his body will be destroyed. He considers this insignificant and not true pain, especially when compared to the suffering he experienced in his past life. She watches in amazement as his blood vessels return to normal color. He tells her he soon won't be able to move and asks her to watch closely. He instructs her to insert the final needle into a marked spot on his head. Once he gives the signal and checks if she is ready, then tells her to proceed. She takes the needle, fully aware that she must insert the poison needle into the top of Zephyr's head and that failure will result in death, so he doesn't need to explain the consequences. As she approaches his head with the needle, she grows extremely nervous, hoping not to make a mistake. The scene shifts to several hours later in the woods north of the Temple of Light. A massive red light descends from the sky while a group of ostriches chases a number of people fleeing for their lives. One man shouts that the creatures are right behind them and urges everyone to run. Another man wearing a yellow cap blames the recon unit for falsely claiming there was just one nest, when in fact the area is filled with monsters. A gray-haired man asks whether backup has been called, and a man in a red cap replies that he fired a flare a minute ago, so reinforcements should arrive soon. He suggests heading to the temple. Suddenly, an ostrich monster attacks and kills him. He estimates the temple is about 3 miles away, meaning a run there would take at least 20 minutes, even in daylight. Soon, he is tied up and seated on the ground, thinking that 20 minutes is far too short a time to survive. Looking back, he sees the monsters ready to strike and believes that in just 2 minutes he will be reduced to a pile of bones. As the ostrich monster prepares to attack, a surge of mana descends from the sky and hits its head, causing a nearby explosion. Zephyr lands with full mana power. As the ostrich monsters move to attack, he dodges and grabs one by the neck, twisting it with mana, then seizes another by the mouth and begins striking them one by one. He counts 12 remaining monsters outside the dungeon and plans to break all 12 necks. Launching a simultaneous attack, he eliminates them. The gray-haired man watches in shock, assuming Zephyr must be from the temple reinforcements. Noting the speed of his arrival and wondering whether he is alone, Zephyr asks for the location of the nest. The man, caught off guard, instinctively responds and points in a direction, and Zephyr acknowledges with a quick response before jumping high and leaving. The man realizes he answered as if obeying a superior officer due to Zephyr's powerful aura. He regrets not providing more critical information, but sees Zephyr is already gone. He reflects that 4 of his 7 teammates died inside the dungeon, and as one of the 3 survivors, he knows how dangerous it is and wishes he had at least tried to stop Zephyr from going in alone. As he debates his next move, he sees an explosion from the direction Zephyr went. Moments later, Zephyr returns, dragging the severed head of a monster. The man identifies it as the boss monster. He observes that Zephyr's body is glowing with mana, and Zephyr notes that his body feels incredibly light, concluding that his stats must have at least doubled due to the effectiveness of the poison. He determines that the only thing he needs now is better gear and plans to get new equipment before firing the green flare. The system window indicates that a green flare signals the emergency has been resolved. Meanwhile, Sahak sits beside a pile of monster corpses and reflects that it won't be long now. A few days later, Matthias Grimmer, the senior inquisitor of the 3rd parish of the Temple of Light, explains that there was a cockatrice nest on a rampage, a mid-sized one with a pack leader nearly 100 feet tall. A single slave defeated them, and their investigation of the site confirms the survivors' eyewitness accounts. He believes the slave is now trying hard to show off, especially since the raid is just 20 days away, and suggests that they probably want to include him in the raid party. He considers interrogating the slave on suspicion of being a Tartarus worshipper. Lucius Giornetti, the commander of the Temple Knights of the 3rd parish, responds that they should leave him alone. He argues that since they won't be able to catch every Tartarus worshipper before the raid, they might as well use the strongest ones to reach the boss room, even if they are Tartarus worshippers, and then eliminate them there. He reminds Matthias Grimmer, as both captain of the raid party's vanguard and a friend of 20 years, that he has voiced concerns about this plan many times. Lucius Giornetti laughs, noting that he anticipated Matthias's concern, which is why only he was informed. He then opens a door, revealing the shining lance and winged shield of Michael, legendary items he acquired for 1/3 of his fortune. Matthias is stunned, having only read about them in books. Lucius assures him that after 10 years of failed attempts, this raid will finally succeed with these weapons, and he will be invincible. Meanwhile, Dale mentions that he barely got started with training and wonders why the grounds are crowded. Marco says it's because news spread that 2 or 3 spots are left for slaves in the raid party, so everyone wants to get noticed. Dale questions what that has to do with them. Anna Primrose arrives and the group bows to her. She tells them to pay their interest on time, calling them losers. Dale, annoyed, asks why the mean nun is in their room. Zephyr sits on the bed and slides a ring onto his finger, surprising everyone. Gote wonders if Anna Primrose gave him the ring and asks where it came from. Zephyr downplays it, saying it was just a gift. The system window reveals that the Ring of Purification improves mana flow, boosts magic defense, and allows the wearer to use the curse removal skill once per day. Zephyr thinks White Rose got him a good item, remembering her telling him that after his upgrade, he would need the proper gear and that the ring is only a preview of what she can provide. He notes that she offered help before he even asked, showing her sharp business sense. Meanwhile, Anna walks down the hall, reflecting that she learned about them from the black market, specifically Persephone, the Guild of Assassins, a legendary group known for enhancing stats with poisons and using elite martial arts and toxins to kill their targets. She believes that Zephyr's incredible skill in monster hunting and his physical enhancement through poison now makes sense. He must have been one of the assassins from Persephone. She remembers that Persephone disbanded a few years ago due to internal conflict. But wealthy clients who once hired them are now desperately searching for any remaining poisons or surviving members and would pay vast sums for such expertise. Compared to that, the money she earns from monster trading is insignificant. She decides that she needs to recruit Zephyr and provide him with gear that exceeds even his expectations. Meanwhile, Zephyr wonders where she got that idea, but decides it's actually beneficial. If White Rose starts spreading such rumors about him, it will draw attention and he will eventually come for him. Gote places a hand on Zephyr's shoulder and remarks on how close he seems with Sister Anna Primrose, praising his talents. Marco jokes that this explains the night he disappeared and expresses admiration. Zephyr is confused and says he wants to talk about the dungeon. Before he can continue, a sound interrupts them. Dale looks outside and finds a paper pinned to the door with a knife. It contains a message for Gote's unit to leave immediately and report back on a mission. Gote wonders who would post such an order secretly and then run off. Marco observes that it looks official, complete with a stamp and the signature of the hunting team's head. Zephyr takes the letter, reads it, and realizes the handwriting belongs to Ned, even though it's signed by the head. He understands that Ned is issuing a challenge and decides to go alone. Running through the forest, he thinks about the raid that is coming up in 20 days. The Temple Knight's raid on the tomb of the fallen princess, one of the world's 8 most difficult quests. It is an ancient ruin from the kingdom of Medea, and no one has reached the boss room even after 10 years of attempts. Joining the raid requires being part of a top 5 hunting unit from the past year, being a slave working directly under a priest, or being recommended by one. Knowing his unit won't qualify, he plans to use Ned instead, who works for Inquisitor Matthias. If he can deceive Ned into giving him a letter of recommendation, he'll secure a place in the raid. Since Ned is on an unmissable mission and recognizes Zephyr's martial arts, he's likely trying to determine if Zephyr is an ally or a threat. Zephyr arrives at the location and sees Sahak, who greets him with a comment on his dramatic entrance. Zephyr identifies the voice and sees Sahak there, asking if he's alone. He wonders what Sahak is doing there and tells him to leave, insisting he doesn't have time for his nonsense. Sahak mentions that the pain from the scar on his face, which he inflicted upon himself, has been constantly on his mind for the past 10 days, keeping him awake every night. He draws his weapon and declares that Zephyr should wait to witness his newfound power, advising him to say his prayers. Zephyr swiftly moves, striking him and rendering him unconscious. Reflecting, Zephyr considers that Ned, being calculating and meticulous, would not confront Sahak alone without hiding something else, and questions if Zephyr intends to reveal himself. Zephyr asserts he will face whatever challenges are thrown at him. Sahak laughs and summons a monster using a magical instrument, remarking that Zephyr has once again underestimated him. The Shoggoth lifts Sahak up, leaving Zephyr shocked. Sahak declares his intent to kill Zephyr slowly and painfully, commanding the Shoggoth to attack him. As the attack unfolds, Zephyr wonders why this is happening. Sahak laughs and orders him to die, prompting Zephyr to counter with a magical mana attack. He is shocked to see and thinks what's going on. Zephyr defeats the Shoggoth and considers it one of the biological weapons of the Tartarus worshippers. He did not expect to encounter it here. The Shoggoth remains dormant in the form of an egg until awakened by the sound of a hypnotic instrument. The system window indicates that the Ocarina of Hypnosis controls the Shoggoth. Depending on the combination of notes played, the Ocarina issues different commands and protects the user from the Shoggoth's mental corruption. Zephyr believes the Shoggoth lacks a mind of its own, possessing only an insatiable appetite. Physical attacks prove useless against it, and it grows stronger with every human it devours. Absorbing mana, the Shoggoth moves to attack him. Zephyr considers this aspect alone terrifying enough, but senses something even more fearsome about the Shoggoth. As soon as the Shoggoth touches him, mental corruption begins. It induces fear, causing hallucinations, and once his mind is fully corrupted, a frenzy sets in. He contemplates that individuals in a state of frenzy completely lose their minds and begin killing even their own allies. It's the ultimate weapon for the massacre. The Tartarus worshippers created this monster to slaughter their fellow human beings more easily. The Shoggoth catches him. Sahak accuses him of being a fool, claiming that if he has lost his mind, he has no idea what's about to happen. He points out that his eyes are all red, indicating he is about to go into a frenzy, and his mind is almost completely corrupted now. Sahak predicts his imminent demise. Zephyr utilizes his magic with the ring and invokes curse removal. The system window informs that the Ring of Purification promotes smoother mana circulation in the wearer's body and enhances magic defense. The curse removal skill can be used once per day. After killing the Shoggoth, Zephyr seizes him by the neck and declares that previously all he cared about was saving himself and the people who mattered to him. This seemed the most sensible approach given the world's misery, but at some point he began to wonder. He wonders if things would have turned out differently if there had been more people around him who knew how to to fight, and if the surviving humans had worked together more, perhaps then the people he loves might have had a chance to live a little longer. Sahak wonders what he is talking about. He explains that in this life, he has chosen to spare whoever he can and give a chance to those who wish to become stronger, but not himself. He asks how many people he has fed to this monster, estimating it to be around 100, and questions how many more people will have to die until he is satisfied. He verbally abuses him, believing he does not deserve to live. He throws him to the floor, channels mana power, and delivers a punch to his heart. Sahak vomits blood as he delivers another punch to his face, smashing it. He employs a technique that rains down a storm of blows on his opponent before delivering one final strike. The palm of his hand is accelerated using mana, creating a mist of blood from his opponent's face, which bursts into a lightning strike. This technique is widely feared and known in the East as the Dragon Roar. He reflects that the secret technique of the Dragon King's martial arts style is the lightning palm. Zephyr observes Sahak's lifeless body and concludes that the electric shock must have instantly killed him, imagining how excruciating it must have been for electricity to surge through his entire body. He believes Sahak received the exact kind of death he deserved. Retrieving his instrument, he reflects that physical attacks are ineffective against the Shoggoth, which can only be defeated with elemental attacks like electricity or fire, or with divine energy. He feels relieved that the Shoggoth is still small and determines that one more strike should be enough to destroy it. Choosing not to use any more mana, he plays a song on his instrument. The system window indicates that the Shoggoth's annihilation code breaks the mana bonds holding its cells together. Ned arrives and expresses surprise that Zephyr knows the song, noting that only Tartarus worshippers are aware of it, and that it's a highly classified melody unknown even to the temple's intelligence agency. He comments that Zephyr appears to know a lot. Seeing him, Zephyr thinks to himself that the moment he has been waiting for has finally arrived. He remembers Ned saying he had a mission he couldn't afford to fail, realizing there's no way he can ignore someone who uses the same martial arts as himself. Zephyr knows he must deceive Ned into giving him a letter of recommendation to join the raiding party. He believes Ned is eager to test him now and that this is the moment he has anticipated. He must pass this test and convince Ned that he is a Tartarus worshipper to change the future and repay the debt he failed to settle in his previous life. He desires a different outcome in this life and is determined to deceive Ned and get closer to him, whatever it takes. Ned declares that he has been watching Zephyr all along and has decided that Zephyr must be eliminated. Drawing his sword, Ned attacks, but Zephyr blocks every blow. Sensing something odd, Zephyr realizes all of Ned's attacks have missed. He throws magically enhanced stones toward Ned, who steps back, impressed that Zephyr was able to dodge. Preparing to counterattack, Ned engages once again. Zephyr considers that only his master and a few others in the world can dodge Ned's sword, and assumes that Ned is using some kind of trick. Zephyr comments that attacking an unarmed person with a sword is unfair, throws the sword aside, and prepares for hand-to-hand combat. They both launch toward each other. Zephyr recalls that, similar to the lightning palm technique, the Dragon King's martial arts style includes a secret technique that surrounds enemies with electricity through explosive acceleration, granting immense speed and power. However, those familiar with the style also know how to counter it. He considers the floating cloud technique, which distinguishes between negative and positive electricity. Opposites attract and like charges repel. This defensive skill relies on those properties, and by countering positive electrical attacks with positive electricity, the user can protect themselves while completely neutralizing incoming attacks. Ned reflects that using the floating cloud technique is much harder in practice than it sounds, as the attacks are often too fast for most people to follow. To defend successfully, he must generate enough electricity. If the amount he generates is greater than or equal to that of the attacker, the attack will bounce off, but if it is less, the attack will break through. He realizes that to use this skill effectively in battle, one must adjust the defense's position, timing, and intensity in fractions of a second, which requires rigorous training and cannot be achieved through a simple copied skill. He becomes convinced that his opponent is genuine, which astonishes him since only he and his brother were ever taught the Dragon King's secret technique. Demanding to know the man's identity, Ned hears Zephyr identify himself as Jinryang of the East, the 9th highest-ranking Tartarus worshipper. Zephyr claims to have crossed the demon-controlled Saharan desert to reach Aslan. He recalls that Jinryang rose to prominence among the Tartarus worshippers using the Dragon King's martial arts, and that Jinryang had only 2 true disciples who were taught its full secrets, Jingan Jinryang's own son, and Ned himself. Zephyr explains that this is because only two are needed for sparring and to preserve the secrecy of the art. Ned replies that he has never seen Zephyr before, not even among the ordinary disciples, and finds it suspicious that he destroyed the Shoggoth, a prized asset prepared for the upcoming raid using over 100 human lives. Ned questions Zephyr's identity and intentions, unsure whether he is truly a Tartarus worshipper. Zephyr responds that he understands the suspicion but adds that he has not been in contact with the Master and asks whether Ned truly believes the Master would have only two disciples. Raising a finger, Zephyr points out that if one disciple were to die, the other would be left alone, and training a new one from scratch would take too long. Ned considers this possibility and realizes the logic in it. Zephyr confirms Ned's thoughts and reveals that he is the shadow disciple, secretly trained to replace a direct disciple in the event of their death. Zephyr considers that shadow disciples are a long-standing tradition in Eastern martial arts, serving as hidden backup successors trained in secrecy to preserve martial techniques in emergencies. Once official successors inherit their master's position, the shadow disciples are usually eliminated as they possess equal skill and could pose a threat. Zephyr reflects that this explanation is accurate, though in reality, the actual shadow disciple will not arrive until after the raid because Altair and her companions are holding him back. He suspects Altair, a princess, might still be involved in something inappropriate and intends to exploit the current situation. Ned acknowledges that if Zephyr's claim is true, then his existence must be highly classified. He asks why the Master sent him and mentions he has already contacted the Master, who confirmed that no disciples like Zephyr were sent. Ned thinks he didn't actually contact the Master, but if Zephyr is lying, he will likely start offering poor excuses. Tartarus worshippers in the temple can't easily communicate with the outside, so infiltrators must rely on observation and instinct. If Zephyr shows even minor signs of deceit, Ned is ready to kill him. Zephyr replies that he was ordered not to contact other Tartarus worshippers, to keep his identity secret, and to independently find a way into the raiding party. He adds that he is supposed to take over Ned's mission if something happens to him. Ned asks if Zephyr knows the mission. Zephyr confirms, saying it's to obtain the dragon heart and escape. He explains that the dragon heart is a magical stone formed within a dragon's heart, granting the wielder immense power. Only one has ever been found, buried with Princess Eurydice 1,000 years ago. He asserts that the temple knights are no match for the Dragon King's electric acceleration, and once he acquires the dragon heart, nothing can stop him. Still, he acknowledges that he can only do what he can. He adds that his appearance now, against orders, was because the raid requirements were more difficult than expected, and he dislikes complicating things. He also has a personal matter to discuss with Ned. When asked, Zephyr leans in and whispers that it's about blood tears. Ned is stunned, as only he and the Master know about blood tears, a stolen family treasure, and the reason he serves the Master in pursuit of revenge against the temple. He demands to know how Zephyr knows about it. Zephyr says he'll reveal more when he decides he can trust Ned and asks for help getting into the raid, complaining about the hunting team dormitory. Ned realizes he has no choice but to trust him and tells him to follow. They arrive at an abandoned building near the temple, where Ned introduces Zephyr to the group as the last member. He explains that the Master sent Zephyr to help complete his mission and that Zephyr has already been vetted according to standard procedure. Matthias Grimmer, seated on a chair, remarks that this explains why Zephyr stood out so much and suggests that Zephyr should consider it an honor to be assigned to assist a disciple of the Master. With Zephyr now included, the entire raiding party of 40 members, made up of slaves from both the hunting team and the Inquisition, is composed entirely of Tartarus worshippers. Grimmer decides to explain the raid operation once more for the benefit of the new member, emphasizing the importance of remembering the instructions and avoiding mistakes, concluding with a toast to the honor of the Tartarus worshippers. Zephyr considers that being added to the raid by Ned could be a valuable opportunity to gather intelligence about the Tartarus worshippers in advance, but he didn't expect all 40 members to be aligned with Tartarus. He finds the situation absurd and reflects that these individuals are not like Sahak or his past self, but are a hardened elite force trained for high-stakes missions. He questions their loyalty to Tartarus. Ned, meanwhile, suspects that Zephyr revealing his identity means the Master doesn't fully trust him and wonders how much the Master has confided in Zephyr, given his knowledge of blood tears. Ned worries that the Master may trust Zephyr more than him, but pushes the thought aside, recalling the Master's promise to help him get revenge if he proves himself himself useful. He believes he must secure the dragon heart at any cost and considers that if Zephyr was trained as his replacement, the master may intend for Ned to die in the dungeon. He suspects that Zephyr might even try to kill him. Matthias Grimmer then concludes the explanation and announces the division of the raiding party into groups, with one group protecting Brother Ned and the other tasked with eliminating Knight Commander Lucius. Later, Ned extends his hand to Zephyr, suggesting they work together in the same group since they share the same mission. He reasons that if Zephyr is after his achievements or his life, keeping him close would allow him to monitor him. Ned says he looks forward to working with Zephyr. Zephyr reflects that in his past life, Ned's obsession with revenge led him to trust the wrong people and destroy himself. He knows Ned to be loyal, patient, ruthless to enemies, but supportive of allies, and believes that winning Ned's trust could prove invaluable in overcoming future challenges. Zephyr shakes his hand and agrees to work together, thinking that in this life, he will salvage the meaningful relationships he missed before. A memory from Zephyr's past life surfaces. He sits against a wall, his neck burning, while Ned tells him it's his choice, to learn the ultimate martial art and help him escape, or to die there. Zephyr reflects that the first major twist of fate was having Ned, the strongest man on Earth, as his teacher in the Dragon King-style martial arts. The next day, Zephyr finds that the list of participants for the raid on the tomb of the fallen princess has been posted. The system window notifies that all members listed are to gather at 6 a.m. the following morning, remain in a designated area, and undergo training until the raid begins. For security reasons, they are restricted from speaking with anyone outside the raid party until its conclusion, and they must bring their own equipment and report all expenses in advance. Zephyr reflects that everything is going according to plan and that it is time to prepare. He recalls having cleared the Black Steel Spider dungeon, the Cockatrice Nest, and the remote mountain village that Ned had manipulated records for, presenting it as a goblin den, successfully fulfilling his promises. Gote, Marco, and Dale bow before him, thanking him and wishing him well. Zephyr tells them they now have an impressive record, and with 40 slaves selected for the special raid mission, many positions have opened up. He assures them of their likely promotion but warns that they will face tougher missions and need to stay sharp. Dale, addressing him as Sir, hesitates to ask to join Zephyr to learn more from him but says nothing. Zephyr senses this and tells Dale that if he gives his all, one day he will be ready to join him. Dale bows in gratitude. Zephyr reflects that two people who should have been dead by now in his past life are still alive, and seeing the light in their eyes makes him feel his efforts were worthwhile. Still, he knows they remain at risk. If the Tartarus worshippers summon Tartarus in 3 years, many lives, including theirs, could be lost. He needs the dragon heart to prevent that. Later, Zephyr prepares to move on. Anna Primrose asks for his opinion on the gear she has gathered for him. He examines the weapons and finds them perfect as requested, with blunt weapons ideal for high mana responsiveness. He recalls that the tomb of the fallen princess is filled with undead skeletons that feel no pain and are immune to slashing or bleeding damage, requiring blunt force to shatter their bones. He tells her the quality is excellent and agrees to buy everything. Picking up a sword, he says it is his favorite. The system window identifies it as the Twilight Longsword, a knight artifact over a century old, emitting a mysterious mist-like energy. Anna thinks she only acquired the sword because he asked for it, though longswords are not effective against skeletons, and she wonders what his plan is. Zephyr reflects that skeletons are not his main concern. The Temple of Light has been trying to conquer this dungeon for 10 years, and the Tartarus worshippers are all in for this raid. He must reach the dragon heart before any of them. Zephyr realizes that every member of the raiding party is an enemy, and that Ned still does not trust him. He understands that even if he reveals the truth to Ned, gaining his trust won't be easy. If he fails and ends up fighting Ned, there will be no chance to stop like last time. It will be a fight to the death. Just then, Angelia Knox enters and apologizes for being late. She introduces herself as Angelia, an enchanter from the lab, and acknowledges that he must be the client Anna mentioned. Zephyr reflects on enchantment as a process that imbues gear with divine energy, mana, or elemental properties, with higher levels granting more power and duration. He recognizes her as one of the top enchanters in the temple and greets her. She performs her magic, calling upon the Mother of Glory, and a light appears, revealing 5 items: Blessed Griffin Feather Shirt, Blessed Twilight Longsword, Blessed Griffin Hide Boots, Blessed Mace of Suffering, and Blessed Black Steel Spider Hook. Zephyr reflects that while preparing to fight the other raid members is important, so is being ready for the dungeon's evil energy. He now feels prepared. Angelia states the enchantment cost is 3,000 gold and asks how he will pay. He hands her a coin-filled bag, which she accepts and leaves. Zephyr reflects that such cheap enchantments from someone like Angelia must mean White Rose pulled some strings. Anna Primrose then asks if they should settle their account and confirms he is okay with the arrangement. He asks what she means, noting her commission was small and the gear seemed expensive. She admits she put in the effort to gain favor with him, saying they're not exactly strangers. He thanks her but points out he has no money. She asks what he means, and he explains that the cockatrice parts weren't worth much and the village wasn't a real dungeon, so he found nothing valuable. She reacts in disbelief, asking if he doesn't have even one coin. He then uses his silver key to retrieve poison bottles, Belial and Zagan, from his inventory and wonders if she would accept them as payment. She considers them deadly poisons of Persephone and excitedly agrees. He raises the bottle, teasing her, and she urges him to stop, asking if he enjoys teasing people. She demands the poisons, and he gives them to her with a warning to be careful when selling and to avoid black market moles. As he leaves, she waves and wishes him a safe trip, inviting him to visit again after the raid for his change. The next morning, everyone gathers on the ground. Zephyr observes the crowd, estimating around 100, including temple knights and healers. He reflects that very few survived last time and expects the same now. Lucius Giornetti, commander of the temple knights and head of the raid, notes that everyone appears present and suggests they begin. Zephyr evaluates the raiding party assembled for the tomb of the fallen princess. The temple knights include 18 official priests, 10 combat knights, and 10 healers. Their lower branch, the hunting team, has 20 members. The inquisitors consist of 12 official priests, 6 combat inquisitors, and 6 healers, while their lower branch, the inquisitor agents, also numbers 20. In total, there are 86 individuals, all divided into functional groups. The advanced guard is responsible for close combat, path clearing, and reconnaissance, while the rear guard manages long-range attacks, recovery, and support spells. All are commanded by 4 leaders: Arno, the head healer; Leona, the rear guard captain; Matthias, the advanced guard captain; and Lucius, the overall leader. Zephyr reflects on stigmata, divine marks granted to humans by the gods, especially those known as the Holy Ones. These individuals receive divine powers during life and become angels after death. Lucius, the Holy One of Light, received his stigmata at age 7 and is revered with near angelic devotion, making it surprising that he appeared before the general party. Staring at Ned, Lucius delivers a prophecy that this year's raid will finally conquer the tomb of the fallen princess after 10 years of failure, marking the names of all participants in history and granting freedom to the slaves. He warns of 2 weeks of brutal training ahead for the sake of glory. The group prays for protection under Almighty Arya's light. They ascend to the summit of Screams, a harsh training ground. Zephyr questions who truly benefits from this pursuit of glory. While defeating a dungeon brings honor, the real motive is profit. Raids require political approval, recruiting members, funding for gear and supplies, and years of planning. Upon success, roads and cities are built to boost land value and generate wealth. The third parish temple is essentially Lucius's base for exploiting the tomb of the fallen princess, continuously training new candidates for raids. At the golem training area, Leona instructs them to treat the floating lights as enemy spells. 3 hits and they're out. She starts the mock battle and they begin fighting wooden soldiers. A man in black comments on the difficulty, another agrees it feels real, and a man in a yellow cap raises his hand, indicating his defeat. Zephyr strikes a wooden soldier and shatters it. Ned reminds the team that Dragon King-style techniques are not allowed, and Zephyr acknowledges the instruction. They launch an attack on the main monster, with Ned leaping high for an aerial strike while Zephyr attacks from another angle, slicing the monster into pieces. Afterward, Arno announces they have successfully completed the task of killing 500 golems and grants a 15-minute break, noting that the current group, particularly Ned and Zephyr, is outperforming the team from the last raid. He believes they might actually have a chance at clearing the dungeon this time. Holding a glowing cross, Arno invokes Almighty Arya to heal all wounds and fatigue, then informs the advanced guard and healers that the next 2 weeks will feel like a full month and urges them to return to training. Later, on the evening of the final training day, Arno announces the completion of the training period, expressing satisfaction that no one was eliminated. He advises everyone to eat well and rest, as their journey to the dungeon begins tomorrow. Everyone acknowledges the instruction. That evening, Zephyr approaches Ned on the rooftop with a plate of food and asks why he is not eating. Ned responds that he has eaten only what is necessary to maintain peak speed. Zephyr sets down the plate and decides not to eat either, saying he must complete his mission. Ned asks if Zephyr is still planning to outrun him to the goal. Zephyr reassures him and offers a bottle, stating it will warm them and help them move faster. As they pour drinks, Ned asks how much Zephyr knows about him. Zephyr explains that he originally thought Ned intended to eliminate him, but realized during training that Ned had no such intent, which he finds even more confusing. Ned recalls how only he and the Master know about blood tears, a stolen family heirloom, and the reason he is working with the Master to get revenge on the temple. He asks Zephyr to share what he knows about it. Zephyr replies that he will tell him when he decides he can trust him. Ned observes that Zephyr knows his secrets, and in his position, most would use that knowledge for blackmail. Yet Zephyr says he'll wait until he trusts him, which confuses Ned further. Zephyr responds that the better question is not about what he wants, but about the location and current owner of blood tears. He promises to reveal the sword's location and whispers it to Ned, who is shocked by what he hears. A flashback is shown, where young Ned stands with his father, Leonard, in front of the blood tears sword. Leonard explains that blood tears is a magical heirloom passed down in the Baron Stryer family, obtained by their ancestor after defeating demons in the desert. When their ancestor presented the sword to the king, their family was granted the title of Baron and charged with safeguarding blood tears for future generations. Leonard tells Ned that one day he will inherit the title of Baron Stryer and the honorable duty of protecting the sword, encouraging him to become a great knight worthy of it. He places his hand on Ned's head and asks for his understanding, which Ned affirms. Leonard laughs and adds that he hopes his investments give a good return if he passes anything else down. Later, Leonard is captured by soldiers demanding that Priest Oldine return the sword. Leonard argues that he only used his house and noble title as collateral, not the sword, and pleads for its return. Priest Oldin commands him to step back, stating that blood tears now belongs to Baron Stryer and not Leonard's family, as Leonard forfeited his right by giving up the title in exchange for the loan. When Oldin moves to attack Leonard, a knight cuts his arm and another stabs him in the belly. Ned, witnessing this, cries out to his father. Oldin claims Leonard is lucky he wasn't harmed and reflects on how shocking it is that a commoner would attack a bishop's noble-born son within the Temple of Light. He warns that if Leonard had hurt him, Ned would have been executed as well, then leaves with his knights. In the present, Ned reflects that such events were common 12 years ago, when dungeon speculation was out of control. Raid party investments were all the rage, item prices soared, and dungeon-related financial products flooded the market. At one point, many investors became wealthy, but as raid after raid failed and fake guilds emerged to defraud investors, the bubble finally burst. This financial collapse became known as the dungeon bubble break. He believes the Temple of Light made a fortune selling overvalued financial products, all while falsely assuring private investors of market safety. These products turned out to be nearly worthless, sold only to protect the temple's interests and profits. Ned remembers that his father was one such investor who borrowed more than he could afford and, like many others, lost everything when the market collapsed. He concludes that the high-ranking priests responsible for the dungeon bubble break committed one of history's worst financial frauds and yet never paid for their crimes. Ned harbors deep resentment toward those responsible for his father's downfall, especially Priest Oldin, who deceived his father under the guise of friendship and ultimately caused his death. His lifelong goal has been to seek revenge against them and to bring down the Temple of Light. Simultaneously, he has relentlessly searched for blood tears, the heirloom of his family that seemed to vanish completely. He struggles to understand why his master is in possession of blood tears. Zephyr reveals that the master recently disclosed to him the identities of the leader of the Tartarus worshippers and the 12 apostles managing the organization, with the leader and half of the apostles being high-ranking priests at the Temple of Light. In a flashback, Zephyr asks Ned to prove his usefulness, offering to help him get revenge, and explains that the master promised him the same, but lied. The master's true intent was for them to retrieve the dragon's heart to give to the leader, ensuring that the Tartarus worshippers would become untouchable and that their revenge would never be realized. Zephyr concludes they were deceived from the beginning. In the present, as the raid team sets off, Ned reflects that his master had felt like family, yet betrayed him. Though he struggles to accept the truth, he reasons that no one else could have known what the master told him. Arno then announces that they have arrived at the tomb of the fallen princess. Ned feels the dungeon's overwhelming dark energy and realizes it far surpasses any he has seen before. An older man observes the tomb with interest, recognizing the challenge it presents. Ned understands this is one of the 8 most difficult dungeons in the world. Matthias Grimmer opens the gate, and Arno reiterates that the raid team has been attempting to conquer the dungeon for 10 years. He points out the purification amulets on the first floor walls, indicating it had been cleared and purified long ago. The dungeon consists of 9 floors, and the last team cleared up to the 7th, defeating the gatekeeper on the 8th. Due to lingering evil energy, monsters continue to appear. Arno commands the advanced guard to prepare for battle in 3rd formation. Matthias Grimmer draws his sword and calls them to action. Meanwhile, at the Temple of Light, Bishop Alfonso Giornetti, the head of the 3rd parish, expresses gratitude for the reinforcements provided, noting that most of their warriors are away at the raid. He thanks his guest for lending troops to protect the temple. Cardinal Olden Lasker replies that it's nothing, emphasizing mutual support in such times. He reflects that during Lucius's absence on the raid, the temple of the 3rd parish was visited by knights from the central parish and a Tartarus worshipper, all now under his command. As skeleton monsters attack Zephyr's subordinates, they fight back with determination. A man wielding an axe comments on the unending onslaught of skeletons, questioning how they continue appearing so relentlessly. An older man calmly reassures him that he isn't even tired. Another masked man explains that this is the tomb of the fallen princess Eurydice, a legendary sorceress who enchanted tens of thousands of her own subjects and entombed them alive. Over the centuries, grave robbers have added to the bone supply, leaving her with no shortage of corpses. He mocks the situation, laughing that they truly don't understand the scale of what they're facing. Suddenly, a bone golem appears, assembled from hundreds of skeletons and wielding a massive weapon. It slams the ground and launches many attackers away. A man calls out that a shockwave is coming their way, but soon realizes that it's almighty Arya. Leona strikes with her magical staff, summoning a chain of light to bind the golem, announcing that it worked and urging everyone to attack, while also warning not to ignore the skeleton warriors. The golem, however, breaks free of the chains. She urgently warns everyone to be careful. Matthias Grimmer raises his sword in prayer, calling for the goddess's guidance, and releases a surge of life energy before launching an attack on the golem. A knight guides the party, telling everyone to stay focused, and observes that the presence of a bone golem implies a controlling force nearby. The system confirms this is a skeleton mage, an intermediate monster that uses magic to control lesser skeletons. Arno uses his magic and warns that the mage must be eliminated or it will keep generating golems. They manage to destroy the mage. Matthias, understanding the urgency, reminds others not to rush and reflects that the rear guard's limited attack range means they must approach the mage directly. He calls for reloading and notes that they must get past more enemies first. Looking around, he wonders aloud where the target is, knowing failure to locate it will doom the battle. Lucius Giornetti steps in, tells everyone to clear the way, and magically enlarges his weapons to the amazement of those watching. He smashes an ancient tombstone, which the system reveals was supplying mana to the skeleton mage. Lucius remarks that mages are difficult to defeat unless the tombstones are destroyed first, though eliminating both simultaneously is also effective. He then declares that with both the mage and the golem defeated, they should kill the remaining monsters. Observing Lucius, Zephyr reflects on how, during the previous raid, it took the rear guard 30 minutes just to destroy a single tombstone. Zephyr observes that the Shining Lance is exceptionally powerful, and having a holy one like Lucius Giornetti present significantly changes the tide of battle. He reflects that this is the kind of power that being backed by 2 million gods can buy. Lucius Giornetti announces that the 8th floor has been successfully cleared and no monsters remain, instructing the healers to treat the wounded and suggesting that they camp there for the night with purification amulets set up to protect them while they sleep. Zephyr, moving secretly, inspects the wall and believes he has found a specific location. After pressing a brick, he confirms it is what he was looking for. Meanwhile, Lucius Giornetti addresses the assembled group in the temporary meeting room, displaying a map of the 9th floor and explaining that it will take about 6 days to reach the boss room. He outlines the plan to destroy all tombstones in each area along the way. Leona questions the strategy, suggesting they could clear a direct path to the boss room in just a few days, but Lucius reminds her that taking a shortcut was the reason for last year's raid failure. He recounts how they reached the boss room last year, but were ambushed by legions of undead soldiers from hidden passages during their retreat, leading to massive casualties. He stresses the need to eliminate as many risks as possible, even if the journey takes longer. Arno agrees, noting that the fewer members they lose en route, the more likely Lucius will be in peak condition for the final battle. He believes Lucius might actually defeat the beast this time. Recalling last year's horrifying encounter with the boss room gatekeeper, Arno remembers how the mere sight of the creature broke their morale. Suddenly, a disturbance is heard outside, and Matthias Grimmer rushes to investigate. He is shocked to see a Shoggoth attacking and urgently calls for healers, confused as to why the creature is active prematurely since it was not supposed to be used yet. As he wonders who triggered the Shoggoth, all 4 leaders instinctively look in the same direction, sensing imminent danger. Meanwhile, Zephyr presses a brick, revealing a hidden wheel, and as he turns the handle, the structure begins to creak and collapse. On the other side, the leaders grip their weapons, realizing the entire dungeon is shifting. A meeting of Tartarus worshippers is being held the day before the raid party members were announced. Matthias Grimmer explains that the entrance to the boss room is sealed by a powerful barrier that can only be removed by killing the gatekeeper, and once inside, the door will close and only reopen after the boss is defeated. This conclusion is based on their scouting efforts, tests, and decoding the magical inscriptions on the door. A knight asks whether they can simply break down the wall, to which Matthias replies that if that were an option, the raid wouldn't have dragged on for 10 years. He elaborates that the deeper they go into the dungeon, the stronger the magical protections become, rendering the walls nearly indestructible. However, Lucius has a strategy. He has borrowed a legend-grade item called the Stake of Faith from the Pope, which cost a deposit of 100,000 gold and is on loan for 10,000 gold per year. Matthias explains that this sacred, unbreakable pillar will be used to wedge the door open, as even a door created by ancient sages cannot destroy it. He instructs the attack group to lure the boss toward Lucius and draw it away from the door. Brother Ned will then retrieve the dragon heart and, once past the door, activate the Shoggoths. These monsters grow stronger by devouring humans and corrupting their minds. While the leaders like Lucius have high magic resistance, most priests cannot resist Shoggoth-induced madness, which will cause them to enter a frenzy and attack their allies. Matthias expects that while the leaders are occupied trying to either purify their team or destroy the Shoggoths, the boss will eliminate Lucius. They will then escape and report to the temple that the raid failed. He distributes a special drug that temporarily disables the slave mark's effects, which the group must drink before entering the boss room. He also gives Zephyr an ocarina of Hypnos, which protects the user from Shoggoths and their mind corruption. Zephyr smirks, recognizing how much effort the Tartarus worshippers are putting in, and is glad they are making his mission easier. The scene transitions to just before the plan's activation. Zephyr covertly watches some knights, noting their exhaustion but thinking that the healers should be able to manage. He starts playing the ocarina. A masked man hears the sound and becomes curious. Suddenly, Shoggoths hidden in the knights' bags begin to attack. Zephyr identifies them and instructs everyone to group together to allow the healers to defend them better, then runs away. Another person urges the group to stay close. Zephyr, seeing the distraction, thinks the timing is perfect and moves to press the brick. The scene shifts to the present as the leaders descend and spot Zephyr. Matthias Grimmer remembers Ned introducing Zephyr as someone the master sent to help complete the mission, and he questions why this brother, who isn't the one Ned brought, is operating the device. Zephyr addresses the group and explains that the device was discovered 3 years after the raid ended, during the time the dungeon was used as a shelter from demons. He explains that it is a protective mechanism that shifts the entire tomb structure, allowing him to randomly change the dungeon's layout. Since he had previously stayed in this tomb with his companions, he is very familiar with its layout, and then he starts running. Lucius Giornetti recalls Matthias Grimmer mentioning mentioning a slave who single-handedly cleared a nest of enraged cockatrices, and he concludes that Zephyr must be trying to show off, especially with the raid approaching in 20 days. He considers that Zephyr could be a Tartarus worshipper and identifies him as the gray-haired slave previously discussed. Despite the possibility, Lucius is unconcerned because as long as the slave mark is active, Zephyr must obey commands. He orders Zephyr to stop, but is surprised when Zephyr doesn't respond. Matthias Grimmer suspects Zephyr took the special drug their leader provided, which temporarily nullifies the slave mark's control. He attempts to restrain Zephyr with magic, but Ned intervenes, grabbing Matthias's arm with magical force and attaching it to a flexible sword, an Eastern weapon disguised as a belt that functions like a whip capable of tearing skin. Matthias wonders why Ned would interfere. Ned runs, knowing he blocked Matthias's attack, but that Lucius remains a threat, and now Zephyr must defend himself. Lucius attacks with magical light, but Zephyr blocks it, leaving Lucius shocked and confused. Zephyr reflects that Lucius cannot land a successful hit because strong luck is currently active. The system confirms that strong luck is a high-level blessing from the goddess of fortune, usable 3 times, with 1 use now activated. Zephyr remembers that Mercedes once told him the god who supports him would grant perks, and he could unlock them once he returned. He recalls the day he first looked at the perks list after going back in time, when this entire plan came to him in a flash. He considers that the protective device momentarily alters the dungeon structure, opening new paths and rendering doors irrelevant. If luck favors them, one of those paths might lead directly to the boss's room, and with strong luck active, now is the best chance. Ned runs up beside him, and Zephyr acknowledges that he kept up. Ned confirms that he will do what is necessary. Zephyr notes internally that Ned seems to have made his decision. The scene shifts to a flashback where Zephyr outlines the original Tartarus worshipper plan, which involved entering the boss's room and then stealing the dragon heart to escape alone. He asks Ned if that's what he intended to do, and Ned responds by predicting that such a plan would get him killed. To survive, he insists they must defeat the boss together. Zephyr instructs him to sit, promising that he has a much better plan. Zephyr explains that that is the plan and asks if there are any questions. Ned thinks the plan sounds reasonable and actually quite good, but the issue lies in trust. He asks what Zephyr meant by saying he will die if he tries to run away with the dragon heart. He points out that he knows how fast the Dragon King-style martial arts makes him and questions who could possibly catch him if he takes the dragon heart for himself. Zephyr answers with 2 points. First, he says the dragon heart can only be absorbed using a special technique. Without it, the dragon's mana will kill him. He adds that he cannot absorb it himself, but knows someone who can. Second, he explains that Cardinal Olden is at the Great Temple of the Third Parish, ready to serve as the carrier for the dragon heart. If he doesn't show up, Olden's twin knights, among the strongest warriors in the land, will hunt him down. He emphasizes that once word spreads that he has fled, all the Tartarus worshippers, including their master and expert in Dragon King-style martial arts, will pursue him. He asks if Ned is truly prepared to face all of that and escape without his help. In the present, both Zephyr and Ned are running, taking high jumps. Ned recalls Matthias Grimmer questioning him about suddenly deciding to give the dragon heart to the leader himself and saying that he would not allow any changes to their plan. Matthias expressed concern that the Temple of Light might suspect something because the carrier is so conspicuous. Ned realizes that Matthias assumed he had learned about Cardinal Olden being the carrier from the Master, though the Master never explained the transport method. Matthias reassures him that their transportation plan is foolproof and tells him to focus on his part. He reflects on his surprise that Jinriang shared that information with him, given that the organization keeps identities of other brothers and leaders strictly confidential. He concludes that the Master must truly trust him. Ned acknowledges that everything Zephyr says is true. His enemy, Cardinal Olden Lasker, is not only one of the leaders of the Tartarus worshippers, but is also close enough to the Master to be given such a critical mission. It is not enough that Olden deceived Ned's father and ruined his life. Now he wants to control him forever. As they run, they spot a bone monster ahead. Ned attacks and destroys it, thinking that he will never forgive the Tartarus worshippers or the Temple of Light, and that he will destroy them all. Zephyr tells him to keep moving because every second matters. He responds that he understands. Zephyr acknowledges Ned's feelings but reminds him there is no time to get emotional, as strong luck will only last for another 15 seconds. They enter a room and spot the boss monster approaching them. The boss declares that the heart belongs to him and launches an attack with his sword. Zephyr urges Ned to run, and they both dodge the attack by jumping aside. Zephyr notices a small passage and identifies it as the entrance to the boss room. They both quickly head for the space and enter the next room just as the strong luck timer ends. Feeling relieved, Ned expresses disbelief that they actually made it into the boss room that way. He wonders why the room is empty and questions where the boss could be. Princess Eurydice appears and demands to know who they are. She senses the energy of the night outside the door and scolds them for daring to disturb her royal slumber. Meanwhile, Leona notices that the walls have stopped moving and all the Shoggoths have been defeated. She instructs everyone to gather and begin checking for survivors. They confirm and begin the search. Arno then turns to Lucius Giornetti and asks what their next move should be. Lucius reflects that he witnessed the slave mark being neutralized right in front of him. As a Holy One, he knows he can issue forced commands from nearly a mile away. The system confirms that the slave mark is a tattoo created by priests of light, enabling forced commands on those marked. He begins to wonder whether the individual lacked a slave mark altogether or possessed something that neutralized it. He also notes the sudden appearance of the Shoggoths and the activation of a strange device. Putting all the pieces together, he concludes that Tartarus worshippers must be hiding within the raiding party and plotting against them. Despite his efforts to ensure the raiding party included only trusted individuals and slaves loyal to their superiors, he asks Arno for the names of the two individuals who fled earlier and their affiliations. Arno responds that the silver-haired one is named Zephyr and the one in red is Ned. He adds that Zephyr was recommended by Ned and Ned works under Inquisitor Matthias. At the same time, Matthias Grimmer assumes those two fools ran because they were afraid of the boss and believes they have ruined everything. He reflects that this had been his perfect opportunity to prove his worth to the Tartarus worshippers and advance in the Temple of Light, but now the plan is completely ruined. Addressing his fellow worshippers, he informs them that the plan has changed and instructs them to prepare. Lucius Giornetti arrives with others and asks what they should prepare for. Matthias replies that they should prepare to kill or be killed. When Lucius asks if Matthias has anything to say to him, Matthias responds calmly that there is not really much to say. Ned recognizes the lady as Princess Eurydice, the one whose tomb they are currently in. He is unable to believe that the infamous princess, known for killing so many people 1,000 years ago, could appear so serene and beautiful. He starts to question the accuracy of the historical records, thinking that someone like her could never have committed such atrocities. As he reflects on his own actions, he feels guilt for breaking into her tomb in search of a dragon heart that might not even exist. He notices the sadness in her eyes and thinks that if he could ease even a little of her sorrow, he would do anything. As he steps forward, he stumbles on a stone and nearly falls. Zephyr catches him by the shirt and warns him not to be foolish. Ned realizes he almost fell for a simple spell and acknowledges that he is still shaken by the betrayal of his master. He is startled to see a magic circle on the floor and recognizes it could have been a trap. Princess Eurydice laughs and says it was a perfect opportunity to devour him before she transforms into her monstrous form. Zephyr immediately senses danger as she grows in size and announces her intention to kill them both. Zephyr sarcastically asks Ned how he feels about his little girlfriend now, and Ned angrily tells him to be quiet, stating that the spell has already been broken. She attacks, but both of them dodge the assault. Zephyr identifies the technique as Dark Hand, noting that red hands absorb stamina while blue ones drain mana. As a grand sorceress, Eurydice is capable of conjuring hundreds of these hands simultaneously. He recalls reading in a secret dungeon raid report from his previous life that many party members essentially served as potions for Eurydice because they couldn't counter the skill, allowing her to continuously heal herself. Lucius Giornetti was said to have barely survived his battle with her, nearly dying in the process. Zephyr can feel Lucius watching, as if hoping for his failure. The system window reveals that the Wall of Iron skill, granted by Usra, the god of debt, stores all the user's fatigue and damage as debt, which then hits them all at once when their mana runs out. Meanwhile, Lucius Giornetti, observing the situation, remarks that they have invested 10 years into reaching this point and questions why Zephyr is discarding it all, wondering how long he has been aligned with the enemy. Matthias Grimmer silently notes that Lucius is no fool. First the appearance of the Shoggoths, and now now, the slaves not responding to their slave marks, Lucius has clearly pieced everything together by now. He would not be questioning him so directly unless he was absolutely sure of the truth. Realizing the hopelessness of his situation, Matthias considers that even if he tried to use the slaves as a distraction to escape, he wouldn't make it out, especially since the structure of the dungeon is now unfamiliar to him. And even if he did escape, returning without completing such a critical mission would lead the Tartarus worshipper leaders to execute him. He concludes that killing Lucius Giornetti is the only path to survival. Laughing to himself, he acknowledges that his luck is terrible. He faces a holy one armed with a legend-grade item, backed by a full squad of healers and combat priests, and he has to defeat them all without the help of either the dungeon boss or the Shoggoths. Still, he knows he has one remaining advantage. Although Lucius and his team now consider them enemies, they haven't yet discovered that there are still hidden Tartarus worshipper allies among them. A surprise attack might give them a fighting chance. Matthias discreetly signals his allies, and the masked man picks up on it, internally agreeing to drink the special potions and proceed with Plan C on the count of 3. The system confirms the potion will temporarily disable the slave mark. Matthias proposes to Lucius that they settle the matter with a duel in true noble fashion and promises to reveal everything if Lucius wins, secretly counting down to begin the attack. But Lucius commands all units to attack Matthias first. The system notes that the slave mark allows priests to control slaves through forced commands. Matthias realizes Lucius acted faster. His allies drop their potions, instead raising their weapons against him. The masked man apologizes, stating they are not acting by choice. Matthias, feeling betrayed, calls them worthless. Lucius explains that his authority as a holy one is equal to that of the Pope. His commands override those of any other priest, and the only way to stop the slaves now is to kill them. He expresses his profound disappointment in Matthias, recalling their friendship from the age of 12 when they joined the academy together. Now both 32, they had endured many hardships side by side, developing a bond strong enough to read each other's thoughts. Lucius struggles to comprehend how someone like Matthias could betray him and declares that his first task will be dismantling the trap Matthias has set.